Chapter 2891. Luo Bu was a middle-aged man. He had the back of a tiger and the waist of a bear, and he was tall and strong. He wore a suit of armor that was surrounded by divine light and surged with a murderous aura. Big brother Luo Bu, this is Zi Chen. These are Zi Chen's friends. When Johann saw Luo Bu, a smile immediately appeared on his face. He turned to Zi Chen and said, "Zi Chen, this is the big brother Luo Bu I told you about." "Greetings." Leader Luo Bu. Zi Chen cupped his fists. Luo Bu's gaze swept across the group, pausing slightly on the women. A strange look flashed in his eyes before it finally fell on Zi Chen. He said, "You're their leader?" Zi Chen shook his head and said, "We don't have a leader. We're all friends and have known each other for many years." Luo Bu nodded and said, "We don't have a leader here either. Everyone is used to calling me Big Brother Luo Bu. You can call me that too." "Okay." Zi Chen nodded. "Johann, take them to find a place to stay and tell them the rules here." Luo Bu's body flickered with divine light and disappeared. "Zi Chen, as long as it's an empty mountain, you can choose." Johann pointed at the barren mountain peaks around them and said, "But I still suggest you choose the inner area, because you might encounter heavenly beasts outside." "Heavenly beasts?" Zi Chen looked at Johann. "Oh, I forgot to mention. Unlike the God world, all the beasts here are called heavenly beasts. For example, the crocodile tailstone devouring beast you killed is also a type of heavenly beast." Johann said, "Heavenly beasts, as the name suggests, are battle beasts from the outer space. It is said that they are the products of an ancient war, similar to the creatures from another space and time. They are now exiled here." Zi Chen looked into the distance and said, "Then I'll choose the outermost area." Johann smiled and didn't continue to persuade him. He led Zi Chen's group and flew into the distance. Along the way, Johann said, "Every 3 to 5 years, Big Brother Luo Bu will bring people to Luke City. If you want to exchange for something, Zi Chen, you can follow them." Zi Chen nodded and asked, "What do you need to do after joining this place?" Johnny said, "Normally, we don't have to do anything, but every time we go out to hunt heavenly beasts, we have to hand over a tenth of the harvest to Big Bro Luo Bu. Of course, if you're acting alone, you don't have to hand it over." Clearly, this was the protection fee. Luo Bu had given Zi Chen a feeling that he was not weak. In the immortal world, he would definitely be ranked as a divine general. But he was not afraid. As long as his opponent was a divine general, he was not afraid of anyone. Johnny said, "When we go out to hunt heavenly beasts together, we can choose to reject. Once or twice is fine, but if we do not join every time, we will need to compensate with some resources." Zi Chen could understand this, so he asked curiously, "What kind of compensation do you need?" "Spirit crystals." Johnny smiled and said, "If it is a spirit crystal, it must be a king-level spirit crystal. Otherwise, it would be a grade 9 principal crystal or a heavenly beast's material. It could be bones, teeth, or scales. Blood and flesh cannot be counted as resources, but if there is enough of them, they can be used as resources." Johnny's meaning was clear. Luo Bu's faction would not be a good person, protecting everyone for free. If they wanted to stay here, they would have to pay a price. Either it was resources or strength. That was understandable, and Zi Chen did not have any objections. At this time, everyone had already arrived at the remote mountain peak. The surrounding boulders were clearly defined. Johnny pointed around and said, "Everyone can live here, but the rocks here are very hard. It is not realistic to want to carve out a cave residence, but everyone can use their own energy to create a residence. I have one here." Zi Chen waved his hand, and a castle appeared. The castle enlarged in the air and landed on a flat ground in front of them, giving off a loud rumble. The castle was black in color, with light swirling around it, and it looked extraordinary. "That would be great." Looking at the castle, Johnny nodded in satisfaction, then said, "However, we still have to be careful. If a crocodile tailstone eater comes here, it will break through in a short time, and even devour the castle as food." Johnny kindly reminded, "Oh, right. The next time you kill a crocodile tailstone eater, pay attention to the cartilage hidden under 1/3 of the scales on its back. It can reach directly to its heart, and you can kill it in one hit. Of course, this required ghostly speed as well as precise control. If you have nothing to do, you can dissect the crocodile tail stone eater. Clang! In the distance, sparks flew everywhere, and energy waves spread out. Everyone turned around and saw the monk standing there with a demon-subduing pestle, and their expressions were full of surprise. This thing is too hard. The monk picked up the demon-subduing pestle and knocked on the rock in front of him, causing golden light to scatter. The rocks here are extremely hard, and it is very difficult for external forces to break them. The teeth of the crocodile tail stone eater are precious materials for refining weapons. Johnny said. With these rocks here, why do we need to refine weapons? Can't we just take them back and refine them? The monk said. Some special rocks can be used to refine weapons, but the rocks here can't. The energy contained in these rocks is similar to the spirit crystals we use in the outside world, but its level is not very high, so it can't be used to refine weapons. It can only be used as food. Of course, if your teeth are good enough to chew these rocks, you can absorb energy from them like those heavenly beasts. Johnny bid farewell and left, and Chen and the others returned to the castle. During this time, no one was guarding the periphery. What should we do now? Stay here. Everyone looked at Chen, waiting for him to make a decision. Chen said, we know nothing about this place, so let's stay here and take a look first. Let's dissect this crocodile tail stone eater and see what's strange about it. Everyone had sharp weapons in their hands. Although it was difficult to break the giant beast's defense when it was alive, its defense was greatly reduced after it died. Zhong Haotian used a long thorn to dissect the crocodile tail stone eater through the gaps in its scales. During this time, they saw the cartilage on the back of the crocodile tail stone eater. It was only covered by a piece of scale, and it went straight to the heart. Remember this weakness, Chen said. Not only did he want Zhong Haotian to remember it, but he wanted everyone to remember it. Of course, Zhong Haotian, who was in charge of killing, had to remember it even more. After separating the body, everyone saw the crocodile tail stone eater's heart that had long stopped beating. They cut open the heart-protecting skin, and a ray of light shot out. The crocodile tail stone eater's heart shone like a gem, and it was also like a shining crystal, containing a surge of power. Chen removed the heart and handed it to the others. Everyone stretched out their spiritual senses to sense it. Chapter 2892. This heart that contained great power was rotated in the hands of several people. Sensing the great power contained in it, everyone's expression changed. Looks like we've come to a good place. The demonic ape licked its lips, its red eyes shining. The others nodded. This crocodile tail stone devouring beast was indeed extraordinary. Chen was even more satisfied. The materials here could make up for the shortage of life stars. After a discussion, the heart of the crocodile tail stone devouring beast was refined by Zhong Haotian. The mission of killing the beast would be given to him. With his strength increased, his battle prowess would naturally increase as well. The next day, no one went out. Johnny came to find Chen again and told him more about this place. At the same time, Chen invited Johnny to eat the meat of the crocodile tail stone devouring beast. Although it fed on the stones of the mountain, what it absorbed was the energy within them. Its meat was extremely delicious, and everyone ate heartily. Chen looked at Johnny and asked, "We'll go out in a few days. Is there anything we need to pay attention to?" Johnny thought for a while and said, "Besides the crocodile tail stone devouring beast, we also need to pay attention to the burrowing beast. It's an existence that burrows as soon as it touches the ground. It's very fast. If you encounter it, don't let it burrow, and don't let it carry you. Otherwise, it will be very dangerous. There's also the azure sky-winged eagle. It has green feathers all over its body. Its feathers are harder than the rocks here. Not only is its defense strong, but its attack power is also very strong." "How strong?" Tyrant came over. He didn't have any food restrictions, so his hands and mouth were covered in oil. "It can crush a huge rock with one claw," Johnny said. Any rock here was extremely hard. Tyrant tried to attack it with the demon-subduing pestle, but there was no reaction. Although he didn't use his full strength, it was enough to prove the hardness of the material. According to Johnny, these three kinds of heavenly beasts lived here. Another thing to pay attention to was not to step into Dela and Huichis territory. Otherwise, it would be dangerous. Where there were people, there would be disputes. Zichen had expected this. Otherwise, why would there be forces here? That night, everyone gathered again. Tyrant said, "We can't stay here for long. The people here have lost their fighting spirit. It seems like they have accepted their fate." Zichen had also noticed this. From some of Johnny's words, he could also see the current situation here. It was nothing more than survival. There was no thought of moving forward. Of course, no matter when, survival was the first step. This was understandable. But other than survival, people had other things to do. "We need to go outside and take a look. Let's go see for ourselves," Zhong Haotian said as he leaned against the door. The demon ape said, "All the dangers are just rumors. We should go and see for ourselves." Everyone voiced their opinions, and almost no one chose to wait and see. Zichen finally said, "All right. We're leaving tomorrow." The next day, Zichen informed Johnny that they were going out. Johnny was a little surprised when he heard that. "Now, should we organize some people?" "No need." Zichen shook his head and said, "We've been working together for many years and already have a tacit understanding. If other people join in, it's inevitable that they won't be able to adapt. That's good as well. However, you all have to be careful. If you meet a group of heavenly beasts, remember to avoid them immediately." Zichen and the rest left the faction. In truth, it couldn't really be considered a faction, at most a gathering point. Johnny had said that the most dangerous place was in the east, and they had to avoid that area. As for the other directions, the heavenly beasts were all moving alone. As the group flew towards the south, Zichen released his spiritual sense to scan the surroundings. This place had a suppressive effect on spiritual sense, but Zichen's spiritual sense was extremely powerful, and even though it was suppressed, it was still able to spread out far enough. After flying for about 100 li, Zichen made a discovery. It was another crocodile tailstone devouring beast. As the group flew forward, they saw the crocodile tailstone devouring beast. It was still eating, chewing on hard rocks as if it was eating beans, and the crisp sound rang out continuously. Its fatal point was its heart, not its soul. Previously, when Johnny had seen Zichen repeatedly hit the crocodile tailstone devouring beast's head and still be able to kill it, he had been extremely shocked. Zichen scanned the surroundings with his spiritual sense, and after confirming that there were no other heavenly beasts, he signaled Zhong Haotian with his eyes. He was the main assassin in the group, and since there was a sure-kill method, he naturally had to try it. Zhong Haotian took a step forward, and his figure disappeared. At this time, they were still about 2 li away from the crocodile tailstone devouring beast. It was unknown whether the crocodile tailstone devouring beast had not noticed them, or if it did not care. After a short while, Zhong Haotian's figure appeared. He silently appeared behind the crocodile tailstone devouring beast, and the long spike in his hand pierced forward. It was still silent, and not even a cold light was reflected. Just as it was about to hit its target, Zhong Haotian's figure suddenly stopped. His body was like a shadow, suddenly twisting, and then plunging downwards, into the ground. Such a scene caused the faces of the people in the distance to change greatly. "You guys be careful," Zichen shouted loudly, and flew forward. The monk followed closely with a light shield, and the devil ape stood on the other side with a black stick. The moment Zhong Haotian launched his attack, a black light wrapped around his body, and pulled him towards the ground. That black light was obviously the underground beast that Johnny had mentioned before. The three people's movements alerted the crocodile tailstone devouring beast, and when it turned its head and saw the three of them, its eyes turned red. This was a sign that it was about to launch an attack, and the energy in its body began to mobilize. It was said that the energy in its heart surged out, causing the change in its eyes. Boom! It stomped on the ground, and its body soared into the air, and violently slammed forward. Its body was like a small mountain, and when it moved, it was like a mountain moving at high speed, and its momentum was vast and mighty. The monk's body was surrounded by Buddhist light, and he sped up, arriving in front of the three people. The light shield in his hand emitted a bright light, and the patterns on the light shield lit up as well. A Buddha appeared behind him, and the boundless Buddhist light illuminated the surroundings. A muffled sound reverberated between heaven and earth, and the crocodile tailstone devouring beast crashed into the light shield. The monk's body trembled, and the Buddhist light behind him quickly dimmed. He did not take a step back, and he resisted the earth-shattering force. The force poured into the light shield, and the light shield became more and more dazzling. After absorbing all the force, it formed a rebound force. Another muffled sound rang out, and the mountain-like crocodile tailstone devouring beast was sent flying backward. Swoosh! The crocodile tailstone devouring beast was sent flying, and its body was no longer under its control. At this moment, a figure appeared silently, and the sharp spike in his hand pierced towards the beast's vitals. Only a few scales protected its vitals, and under Zhong Haotian's full power, these scales instantly shattered. At the same time, a ray of light materialized from the spike, and it went straight for the crocodile tailstone devouring beast's heart. With a thud, the crocodile tailstone devouring beast's body fell to the ground, and the ground trembled. Its limbs twitched a few times, and then it stopped breathing. Chapter 2893. Standing in the air was Zhong Haotian. He had sensed that something was wrong earlier, so he decisively gave up on that attack. Now, he stood in the air, looking at the disappearing crocodile tailstone eater with a cold expression. Zi Chen and the others came forward. They were relieved that Zhong Haotian was fine. At the same time, they had a clearer understanding of the earthen beast. As expected, it would disappear as soon as it touched the ground. In fact, it only moved underground. Damn it, how dare it steal our things? Tyrant walked over. He was very proud of blocking the crocodile tailstone eater's attack and even sending it flying. However, now that their spoils were stolen, Tyrant's expression turned ugly. In the heavenly realm, most of them could challenge ranked divine generals. Their combat strength was definitely comparable to ranked divine generals. Zi Chen was the undisputed #1 divine general in the heavenly realm. But now, their things were stolen. If news of this spread, they would become a joke. Tyrant landed on the ground like a meteorite. With a boom, dust flew in all directions and a deep pit appeared. This was where the crocodile tailstone eater had disappeared. Its huge body did not leave a hole in the ground. It uses the laws. There's no need to leave a deep pit on the ground. Zi Chen's voice came from above. Are we just going to let it go? Tyrant looked around, obviously unwilling. Just take it as a lesson, Zi Chen said indifferently. They were unfamiliar with this place since it was their first time here. It was inevitable that they would be at a disadvantage while familiarizing themselves with the place. Tyrant snorted, disagreeing with Zi Chen's point of view. Looking at Tyrant, who was still standing on the ground, Zi Chen smiled and said, "Let's go." Everyone was in the sky, but Tyrant was walking on the ground alone. He held the light shield tightly in his hand. Everyone knew why he did that. Although they had lost their prey, they did gain something. At least they remembered the earthen beast and would be more careful in the future. In addition, Zhong Haotian and Tyrant both showed that they could suppress the crocodile tailstone eater. This was also a gain. All around them was a wilderness. There was almost no vegetation, and even weeds were rare. It seemed that even the weeds did not like this place. When Zi Chen's spiritual senses swept past the mountain peaks, he would deliberately scan them to see if there were any vegetation. Weeds that grew in the wilderness were just weeds. They were useless. However, the grass that grew on the mountain peak was an exotic grass. It was extremely precious. However, wherever his spiritual senses passed, all the mountains were bare. There was no vegetation at all. While feeling regretful, Zi Chen could also understand. To those heavenly generals, searching for weeds was much easier than killing these heavenly beasts. The nearby mountains had probably been searched dozens of times. Today's luck seemed to be pretty good. After another 5 kilometers, Zi Chen discovered a second crocodile tailstone devouring beast. This time, he was very careful. He used his spiritual sense to check the surroundings again and again. After confirming that there were no abnormalities, he approached the front. The monk stood in the distance and did not move. He also did not step forward to use his light shield to fight. He was still sulking. Zichen flew forward, and Zhong Haotian disappeared beside him. The sound of breaking air was heard, deliberately attracting the crocodile tailstone devouring beast's attention. The crocodile tailstone devouring beast only glanced at Zichen and continued to eat its stones. Zichen, who was ignored, chuckled. A ball of light appeared in his hand, and he threw it down from the sky. With a whistling sound, the light landed on the crocodile tailstone devouring beast and exploded. Energy surged in all directions. Such an attack naturally could not hurt the crocodile tailstone devouring beast, but it successfully angered it. It turned around, and its eyes changed color. There was light flowing around its body. Dong! The ground shook. It soared into the sky and went straight for Zichen. Zichen stood there without moving. The yin-yang light flowed around his body, releasing a powerful aura. The monk raised his head and looked at the scene. He seemed to be distracted. Bang! The two collided, and a powerful force shook. Zichen's body could not withstand a single blow and flew backward. Swoosh! The hidden Zhong Haotian appeared and directly used a shortkill attack. A black light flashed. The scales on the crocodile tailstone devouring beast shattered, and the powerful force penetrated its heart. Exclamations came from all directions. Zichen's body flew backward and crashed to the ground. Bang! His body landed on the ground, and smoke and dust splattered. Smoke and dust billowed, drowning the surroundings. Zhong Haotian, who killed the crocodile tailstone devouring beast in the air, didn't wait for its body to fall to the ground and put it away. On the ground, the smoke and dust dispersed, revealing the deep pit. In the deep pit, Zichen's body disappeared. The monk in the distance noticed this scene. He was stunned for a moment before he realized what had happened. His face immediately turned ugly. Obviously, he was fooled. After Zichen's body landed, he felt a force fall on him. Then, his body sank down. It really came. Although Zichen thought that this was a lesson learned from not understanding this world, it was impossible to give up just like that. So, his body landed on the ground and disappeared from the ground. He was shrouded by the rules. His body kept sinking, and during this time, it moved horizontally. During this time, the power of rules came from all directions and pierced into Zichen's mind. This was a soul attack, and it was very powerful. It immediately destroyed a part of Zichen's soul. Zichen's soul shrank, and his aura disappeared. He was motionless. A moment later, his body touched the ground. A squeaking sound was heard. It seemed to be laughter. A dangerous aura attacked, and the motionless Zichen opened his eyes. Then, he saw 2 rows of sharp teeth biting toward his head. His body disappeared and reappeared on the side, looking ahead. It was a black creature less than 2 meters long. Its hair was very short, and it emitted a glossy light like black silk. The target disappeared. The earthbender beast was stunned. Then, it turned its head and looked at Zichen. It was a rather ugly head. There was a black horn on its forehead. At this time, the horn was shining. When it saw Zichen, a light appeared from the horn and enveloped his body. Buzz! With a light tremble, its body disappeared. It wanted to escape. Buzz! With another light tremble, the other party's body appeared again. This empty underground space was already shrouded in golden light. It could even be said that this space had become a golden world. The ground under the earthbender beast's feet was also isolated by a layer of solid golden light. If it touched the ground, it could use the rules to disappear. If it couldn't touch the ground, it couldn't hide and leave. After seeing that this method was effective, Zichen looked around. This was a huge space. In this space, there were many beast bones. There was no flesh on the bones. They had been eaten clean. Not far away, there was a fresh corpse. It was killed by Zhong Haotian. Soon, Zichen found that although there was no flesh, the heart was still among the bones. Chapter 2894. While Zichen was looking around, the earthen beast attacked him. It was extremely fast, flickering like a black light, and its sharp fangs flashed with a cold light. A beam of light gushed out from its horn, enveloping its body and releasing a violent aura. A whistling sound was heard, and the surrounding space was distorted. The golden energy that enveloped the area began to tremble, showing signs of collapse. Seeing the earthen beast approaching, Zichen's face flashed with a faint smile. He formed a sword with 2 fingers and slashed down. A finger light that contained yin-yang sword chi shot out from his fingertip and landed on the earthen beast. The black light that enveloped the earthen beast's body quickly dissipated. When the finger light collided with the black hair, dazzling sparks exploded as if it had hit steel. The earthen beast's body fell to the ground, but it was unharmed. The earthen beast's defense was stronger than Zichen had expected. His figure flashed, and he appeared in front of the earthen beast like a bolt of lightning. He punched out. Golden light surged on his fist, releasing a powerful aura. Bang! The fist landed on the earthen beast, and a powerful vibration was transmitted into its body. The earthen beast was sent flying. Zichen followed up and punched out again. Bang! 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 A series of punches landed, and a powerful vibration was wreaking havoc. The earthen beast, which was originally shrouded in black light, was now shining with golden light. The golden light came from its body, and it was energy that was slowly flowing into its body. The golden light on his body disappeared, and Zichen stood in the middle of this space. The earthen beast's body fell to the ground, motionless. Zichen, who didn't know where the earthen beast's vital points were, had forcefully killed it. He landed on the ground and walked forward. There were dozens of skeletons here, but not all of them had hearts. A dozen of them had hearts, and the rest didn't. There was no flesh, but there was a heart. Obviously, the heart contained too much power, and the earthen beast couldn't refine it immediately. These skeletons were very clean, and they were very complete. There was no need to break them down. Looking at these skeletons, Zichen was very satisfied. He had gained so much from killing an earthen beast. It was undoubtedly a big gain. Swoosh! The golden light streaked across this space, and the surrounding skeletons all disappeared. Zichen raised his head and glanced at the sky. The golden light on his body receded and was replaced by streaks of earthy yellow light. He was mobilizing the power of the world's laws. The next moment, he disappeared from this world. On the ground, everyone was waiting patiently. The monk had been walking on the ground, but the beast had never attacked him. Apparently, it knew that he had a strong defense. The monk stood on the ground, but he still did not go up into the air. He looked a little unhappy. Pang! At this moment, the earth trembled and soil flew in all directions. Zichen appeared from within. Everyone turned to look at Zichen with questioning looks in their eyes. The harvest is not small, Zichen said with a smile as he transmitted a spiritual perception diagram to everyone. It was a scene of the underground. Seeing such a scene, everyone's face revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. What's the point of killing those heavenly beasts then? Why don't we just find some earth-fleeting beasts to kill? The monk became excited again and was eager to try. This method is not impossible. However, when we are trapped, we need to block a wave of its soul attack, Zichen said. Is the soul attack very strong? Devil Ape asked. I only have the advantage in numbers. I don't have the advantage in terms of quality. Zichen's answer made everyone's expression change. Zichen had the world and perfect spiritual perception, but he did not have the advantage in terms of quality. Didn't that mean that the earth-fleeting beast's attack was very strong? Its attack is indeed not weak, but it's not impossible to guard against it in advance. However, no one knows where it will take people after detecting resistance. This method was not impossible. At the very least, Zichen could use it. After some discussion, they decided that Zichen would still be the one to deal with such a situation. The group continued to move forward. Zichen released his spiritual perception and quickly moved forward when he found the prey. During this time, it was no longer Zhong Haotian killing alone. The others joined in to adapt to the environment faster. That night, the group did not return. Instead, they stayed in the wilderness. The bonfire rose and the fragrance of meat filled the air. During this time, Zichen took out the wine that he had prepared. For many heavenly generals, this was a dangerous place. However, Chen and the others seemed to be very relaxed. However, the golden light under their feet showed that they were still in awe of this place. Perhaps it was because of the fragrance of the meat. 5 or 6 crocodile-tailed stone-eater beasts approached that night and were all turned into corpses. The next day, the group continued to move forward. The day's harvest was not small. Everyone's cooperation became better, and it became easier to deal with the crocodile-tailed stone-eater beasts. However, until now, they had not found a second earth-fleeting beast. Chen sensed 5 crocodile-tailed stone-eater beasts with his spiritual perception. This was rare. Chen did not hesitate and led the group forward. The 5 crocodile-tailed stone-eater beasts noticed them. Their eyes immediately turned red and they attacked. Chen was the first to charge forward and fight with one of the crocodile-tailed stone-eater beasts. During this time, he blocked 2 of the crocodile-tailed stone-eater beasts' attacks. When the third attack came, Chen's body was sent flying and he fell to the ground in an arc. The earth trembled and dust billowed, engulfing Chen's body. At this time, the others were still fighting and had no time to pay attention to Chen. By the time they noticed, Chen had already disappeared. Ibai, are you sure you didn't make a mistake? In another direction, 5 divine generals were walking forward. One of them was wearing armor and said, "Let's go, Master." Of course I didn't make a mistake. I've divined this many times. Dan Fei, if you didn't have a low-grade armor that could withstand the earth-fleeting beast's attacks, we wouldn't have invited you to come with us. The heavenly general named Ibai said, "I'm sure you know how much wealth and resources an earth-fleeting beast's lair contains." Dan Fei nodded and said, "I found one with Boss Chi before. It was indeed amazing. If this earth-fleeting beast's lair is real, then we'll definitely have a great harvest." The few people in front suddenly sensed energy vibrations. It was the sound of battle. Someone's fighting. "It must be Luo Bu's men," said one of the heavenly generals. "So what? They're still some distance away from us. We just need to be careful." Ibai said, "If they keep fighting like this, they won't get much. Even if a group of people comes, their harvest won't be as good as ours." We're almost there. Let's hide behind the mountain." Ibai led the few people to a mountain peak. Then, his body glowed, and the power of law enveloped the few people around him. Then, they went underground. After walking for an unknown period of time, they found a spacious area. Dan Fei, guard the surroundings. The moment his figure appeared, Epi shouted, and a burst of energy emerged from Dan Fei's body. The energy spread out and shrouded the surroundings. Chapter 2895. This was a very large space, located underground. It was a typical lair of the earthly beast, but it was empty. It was empty all around, with only some dried bloodstains. The earthly beast was gone, and the wealth that should have belonged to it was nowhere to be found. Could it have moved? A divine general said as he looked around at the empty space. Aribai looked around and said, "Even if it moved, those bones should have been left behind. It can't devour them, so they're useless." Dan Fei frowned, thinking about something. "You found something?" Aribai looked at Dan Fei, and the others' attention also fell on Dan Fei. Dan Fei said, "When I released my energy, I vaguely sensed a disappearing light. I suspected it was the earthly beast, but now, could it be that someone beat us to it?" Aribai's face turned gloomy. "I spent an entire year to divine this place. How could someone beat us to it? There are people fighting outside. Could it be them?" A divine general said. "This is Luo Bu's territory, so those people must be Luo Bu's men." Aribai shook his head and said, "If Luo Bu had such means, he wouldn't have developed to this extent over the years. If it's not Luo Bu's men, then who could it be?" Dan Fei's face did not look too good. He thought that he would be able to reap a great harvest this time, but he did not expect that someone would beat him to it. "Let's go outside and take a look first. How dare they steal our things? They're courting death." Aribai's face was gloomy. In order to divine this place, he had almost become the earthly beast's food. After a year of hard work, he had finally found this place. How could he let someone beat him to it? The light of laws on his body flickered, and he disappeared with the others. Once again appearing at the foot of the mountain, the 5 of them flew forward. Zichen was once again brought underground. During this time, he suffered another soul attack, so just like before, he withdrew a part of his soul. His body remained motionless, and the remaining part of his soul was quickly obliterated as if he had died. Presumably, the earthly beast had never encountered something like this before, so it was not too wary. Thus, after reaching the underground, Zichen killed it. He did not know how to divine, nor did he know where the earthly beast's lair was. However, his soul was unimaginably powerful, so the earthly beast could capture him. This method was simple and effective. Speaking of which, there weren't many who dared to do such a thing in such a place. And those who had the guts to do so usually relied on their battle armor, so the earth-fleeting beast obviously wouldn't fall for it. The space here was even more spacious, and Zichen was very satisfied with the quality of the corpses, especially the shining hearts, which were like the most dazzling gemstones. Without any hesitation, Zichen put it away and disappeared. Zichen, who had disappeared, did not notice that someone had come here after him. Similarly, he was not aware that a strand of divine will had captured his disappearing shadow. After he appeared, the battle in the air was nearing its end. Everyone looked at Zichen. Zichen nodded in response. The smile on his face indicated that he had gained a lot. The battle was over. After collecting the spoils of war, everyone left. Looking at the back view of the group of people leaving, Dan Fei's expression turned even uglier. Ibai wanted to rush forward and fight with all his might, but he didn't dare to. No matter how strong these people were, those shining general armors were not something they could fight against. In this area, all the divine generals were at least rank 9, so it was very difficult to tell who was stronger at a glance. Most of the time, they could only do so through battle armor. If someone with battle armor fought someone without battle armor, the one with battle armor would usually win. This was because battle armor not only provided powerful defense, it also boosted strength. "What do we do?" a divine general asked. They had already left. What else could they do? They didn't dare to chase after them and fight. "It must be them," Ibai coldly said. "They must have stolen our things." Dan Fei dejectedly said, "I can only deal with one of them, or at most 3, and they're not even wearing battle armor. It's simply impossible for the few of us to take back what we lost." In truth, they had no proof that the group in front of them had taken what was in the earth-fleeting beast's lair, but there were no rules or laws in this world. As long as they had a suspicion, they could be sure. If they had enough strength, they could just go up and kill them. "Let's go back and find Boss," Ibai sternly said. "If Boss shows up, we'll definitely be able to take back what we lost." Zichen's spiritual senses detected people in the distance, but he didn't care. He wasn't good at taking the initiative to kill, so he didn't know that these people were after the earth-fleeting beasts he had killed. They had been out for 3 days and killed 2 earth-fleeting beasts, so they had gained quite a lot. In addition, they had killed more than 10 crocodile-tailed stone-eaters. However, they hadn't encountered the azure sky-winged eagle that Johnny had mentioned. They didn't plan to go back, so they decided to head east. That was where Su Mengyaro had sensed danger. At the same time, it was also the direction to the city. They wanted to go there and take a look. They didn't go too deep, but the number of crocodile-tailed stone-eaters they encountered increased significantly. Fortunately, everyone was good at fighting, so it was easy to fight them. Zhong Haotian was even able to kill them in 1 hit. During this time, Zichen tried to land a few times, but he didn't attract any earth-fleeting beasts. This made him feel a little disappointed. After a few more days, everyone decided to go back and refine the energy crystals they had obtained. Then, they would go deeper into the city. They weren't going to stay here for long. After returning to the remote mountain peak, everyone started to break down their gains in the castle space. When Johnny heard the news, he went to look for Zichen to ask if anyone had been injured. Zichen gave Johnny a few hundred jin of meat as a token of his gratitude. Johnny rejected it for a while before accepting it. After that, he asked in a low voice, "Zichen, this time, did you go to any other areas?" Zichen shook his head, indicating that they hadn't. "Hu Qi from the Hu Qi faction is here. I think it's because of you." I heard that you snatched something from him, Johnny said. Zichen laughed and said, how is that possible? This time, besides hunting heavenly beasts, we didn't meet anyone else. How could we snatch something from someone? That's good, Johnny said. Even if there is, it doesn't matter. Although Huaqi's faction is slightly larger than us, Big Bro Luo Bu is not afraid of him. Furthermore, with Big Bro Luo Bu around, I believe they won't come looking for trouble with you. At this moment, Zichen was thinking back to the 5 people he had scanned with his spiritual sense a few days ago. Could it be that they had taken a liking to those 5 crocodile-tailed stone-eaters? However, such things could be seen everywhere, so it shouldn't be considered snatching, right? Zichen couldn't understand, but he didn't think too much about it. Chapter 2896. Seeing Johnny's ugly expression, Zichen asked, what's wrong? The others also looked at Johnny. After a few days of interaction, Johnny had given them a good impression. Did you guys obtain the earthly beast? Johnny asked Zichen as he looked at him. Zichen was surprised that Johnny knew about it. He nodded and did not hide it. On one hand, it was because of his trust in Johnny. On the other hand, it was because he was confident in his own strength. Johnny's face paled as he asked, did you snatch it from Hodge and the others? T, we exchanged our lives for it. Monk walked up and said unhappily, what Hodge, we don't even know them. Johnny looked at Zichen, waiting for his answer. Monk seemed unreliable to him. Zichen shook his head and said, we got it by accident. We didn't snatch it. We didn't meet anyone back then. Why, did Hodge's men come here because of this? Johnny nodded. He was arguing with brother Luo Bu, and his attitude was very tough. I accidentally overheard it, so I came to ask about the situation. Asking about the situation was also to tell Zichen to be careful. Johnny was being considerate. The others showed anger on their faces. There was no snatching at all, but they were puzzled. How did Hodge's men know about it? Zichen thought for a moment and said, if this matter makes Boss Luo Bu feel embarrassed, then we'll officially leave. It just so happens that we've been discussing going deeper recently. Zichen, that's not what I meant. Johnny hurriedly said, that's not what brother Luo Bu meant either. He'll definitely protect you. Besides, we're not on good terms with Hodge, so we're not afraid of them. Zichen nodded his head and said, I can understand your good intentions. This time, we brought trouble to Luo Bu, and we are quite apologetic. How about this? Bring this to Boss Luo Bu. Thank you for taking care of us these past few days. We'll leave soon. Zichen took out the corpse of a crocodile-tailed stoniator and placed it in front of him with a spatial technique. Johnny immediately stood up and wanted to explain, but Zichen waved his hand and said, Brother Johnny, I can understand your good intentions, but this place is indeed not suitable for us. I hope Brother John can understand. If fate allows us to meet again in the future, we will drink and chat happily. Sigh. All right, I'll tell Boss Rob. However, even if you leave this place, Huachi will definitely not let this matter rest. They have more people than us, and their overall strength is still stronger than ours. Johnny sighed. Zichen nodded, indicating that he would pay attention. Johnny left with the corpse of the crocodile tail stone eater. His mood was still very complicated. He had come with good intentions to remind Zichen, but he never thought that Zichen had already decided to leave. He had some understanding of Zichen's combat strength. He was very strong, and the people around him seemed to be extraordinary as well. The fact that they were able to kill an earthly beast proved that they were extraordinary. Of course, he didn't believe that Zichen would steal Huaqi's things. If he really did, those people wouldn't be able to return alive, let alone bring others here. He could vaguely guess the reason. Zichen and the others had accidentally been brought underground during the battle and discovered the earthly beast's lair. That place was coincidentally the one that Huachi and the others had divined, but they didn't find anything after going there. Although he stayed in Rob's territory, he had heard that someone in Huachi's group could divine the location of the earthly beast's lair. Although it wasn't always accurate, it was already very impressive that they were accurate once in 10 times. This time, it was probably a blind cat bumping into a dead mouse. They just happened to find the right place, but unexpectedly, they found nothing. When Johnny returned, he happened to see Huichi leave, which made him startled. Could it be that the matter was already resolved? "Brother Rob." Johnny, who was standing outside, called out. "Come in." Johnny walked in, and Rob looked at him. "Brother Rob, is the matter resolved?" Johnny asked as he entered. "You just went over there, right? What did they say?" Rob asked in return. His expression was calm, and there was no other expression on his face. Chen said that they didn't steal anything. In order not to implicate us, they're leaving. There was a flash of light in front of Johnny, and the crocodile stoniator that Chen had given him earlier appeared. Chen gave this to me. He said that he wanted to thank Brother Rob for taking care of them these past few days. Rob's eyes flashed, and he said indifferently, "Go and tell them that there's no need for that. I've already sent Huichi's people away. Tell them to stay here at ease. If there's something for me to eat, there's naturally something for them to eat." Johnny smiled bitterly and said, "I'm afraid that won't do. I think they've already made up their minds to leave. Moreover, they're focused on moving forward. They have no intention of staying here. It's fine. We'll part on good terms. Just go and tell them the truth." Rob waved his hand. "Okay, then I'll go talk to them again." While Johnny was heading back to where Chen was, the leader of Huichi's faction, Huichi, returned with a few people. Among them was Dan Fei from last time, as well as Ibai, who was an expert in divination and could be accurate about 1 out of 10 times. Although the accuracy rate wasn't high, as long as it was accurate once, the harvest would be great. Therefore, his position in Huichi's faction wasn't low. "Boss, we're leaving just like that." Ibai turned his head to look at Huichi, looking very unwilling. Huichi sneered, "How is that possible? Then why didn't boss give Rob some pressure?" Ibai wasn't the only one who didn't understand. The others couldn't understand either. After being in such a deadlock for several days, their boss suddenly chose to back down. Huichi sneered, "Let them bite each other first. What we need to do is to clean up the battlefield when both sides are injured. They're going to fight. How is that possible? They're from Rob's faction. They should be working together, right?" Dan Fei asked, puzzled. "Those people have only been here for a few days. Obviously, they haven't really integrated. Even if they do, it doesn't mean anything. Rob will definitely take action against them." "Why?" Seeing Boss Huichi's confident look, everyone was extremely puzzled. If the two sides worked together, Rob's faction would definitely grow stronger. Huichi said, "Because he doesn't have the magnanimity that a leader should have. Moreover, he's extremely greedy and paranoid. Otherwise, Rob's faction wouldn't have developed to such a state." As one of the leaders of the 3 factions, Huichi understood Rob very well. This person had a suspicious nature and didn't trust anyone but himself. Moreover, he didn't want others to be better than him. He was also very jealous. Thus, over the years, some of the capable rank 9s who had joined Rob had either died or left. Those who stayed behind weren't very good. Johnny told him Boss Rob's intentions. As expected, Chen had no intention of staying. He had already finished reorganizing, put away the castle, and was preparing to leave. "Where are you going?" Chapter 2897. Chen looked up at Luo Bu and said, "Prepare to go to Luke City. It's not the right time yet. After a few days, I will bring some people there. We can go together then. If we go now, the journey will be full of danger." Luo Bu said, "That's right, Chen. When the time comes, we can travel together. It'll be safer." Johnny also said. Chen smiled at Johnny, then looked up at Luo Bu and said, "We appreciate Boss Luo Bu's kindness, but we have decided to go." Luo Bu said unhappily, "This trip will be full of danger. There are only 20 of you. It will be hard to avoid danger. If we go together after a few days, won't it be easier?" Chen smiled and shook his head. "I'm afraid we will have to disappoint Boss Luo Bu." Luo Bu shook his head regretfully and said, "This is too disappointing. You have to know that I am doing this for your own good." At the back, Zhong Haotian, who had been silent and indifferent, finally couldn't stand it anymore. He said coldly, "Is it fun to be so hypocritical?" Johnny was startled and didn't understand. The smile on Luo Biyu's face froze and became gloomy. Zichen smiled faintly and said, "We should wait for Boss Luo Biyu to make arrangements." Zhong Haotian didn't say anything. He was silent because he couldn't stand the two's boring and hypocritical conversation. The others didn't bother to respond. They were already waiting for the battle. "What you said is very reasonable." Monk stepped forward and said, "No matter where we go, we can't forget where we come from. As the representatives of the Lifestar, we have to be polite and respectful, even to our enemies." Monk looked up at Luo Biyu and said, "Luo Biyu, don't you think your Lord Zeng's words are reasonable? You have evil intentions and want to harm us, but we are still waiting for you to get into formation and get ready. You want to die." Luo Biyu's eyes flashed with cold light. His killing intent burst out, and a torrential divine power was released from his body. "Brother Luo Biyu, what are you doing?" Seeing this, Johnny's face couldn't help but change. "I won't stop him if he wants to leave. But he took something he shouldn't have." Luo Biyu snorted coldly and said, "You think leaving a stone-eater crocodile is enough? Do you think we're stupid? If you leave with the loot, we'll have to fight Hu Qi. Just because you gave us a stone-devouring crocodile, we'll have to fight for you." Zichen looked at Luo Biyu, smiled, and said nothing. There was no point in explaining. This was an open robbery, and there was no need to distinguish between right and wrong. Johann fell silent. Since he was able to reach the 9th level of the Divine General Realm, he had obviously experienced a lot. He instantly understood everything. His face was a little pale, and at the same time, he was very disappointed. The nearby mountain peaks lit up with light. The light soared into the sky, forming a divine formation that enveloped everyone. One after another, silhouettes appeared in the divine array. They were all people that Johnny knew. They were all members of Luo Biyu's faction, and now they had all appeared. He even saw some of the people who were supposed to be out in groups the day before appear here. His expression changed. This was a scheme that had been planned for a long time. "Big brother Luo Biyu, why is that?" Johnny looked up at Luo Biyu. "Why?" "Because he wants to kill us." Luo Biyu coldly said, "If they leave, what if Wu Biyu attacks us? For the sake of Luo Biyu's 200 brothers, I have no choice but to do this. Brothers, what do you think?" "Kill." Shouts rang out as divine power surged out, forming a powerful and oppressive aura. More than 200 divine generals joined forces to deal with 20 divine generals. This was a difference of 10 times. But under these circumstances, not a single person in Zichen's group showed any fear. On the contrary, they were very excited. Tyrant's eyes lit up. He looked around and said, "With so many people, there must be a lot of resources on them. Moreover, there are many general armors. Among the 200 or so divine generals, there were about 40 general armors." This was indeed a large number. Luo Biyu coldly snorted, "You're about to die and you're still boasting shamelessly." Zichen glanced at Luo Biyu, then his gaze fell on Johann. "Brother Johann, this has nothing to do with you. Stand far away so that you won't be affected." Johann let out a low sigh. He knew that in this situation, it was impossible for him to remain neutral. This would only lead to death. He flew to Zichen's side and chose his side. Tyrant patted Johann's shoulder and said, "You've made the wisest decision." Zichen glanced behind him. A tall and slender woman walked out. It was Li Ari. Divine light flowed around her body as she walked towards the crowd. Her legs under her colorful dress were straight and powerful. If the 9th divine general had not died back then, she would have been the daughter of a god and had an extremely noble status. Although she no longer had the halo of a god's daughter, she still had the powerful talent of a god's daughter. From another perspective, her talent was even higher than some sons of gods. Everyone's attention fell on Li Ari. Many people's gazes became fervent, thinking that perhaps some other wonderful things would happen after the battle was over. Ripples appeared on her body as she let out a soft tremble. A divine light appeared. This divine light flew into the distance, drawing one circle after another. A series of popping sounds could be heard from within the circle. The reason why Johnny chose Zi Chen was because he had seen Zi Chen's strength before, so he was taking a gamble. Because if Zi Chen won, he would definitely not be in any danger. But if he bet that Luo Bu would win, then even if Luo Bu really did win, he might still end up being killed. Thus, no matter how he looked at it, Zi Chen's side was the most suitable. Moreover, the people on Zi Chen's side were all very confident, and this confidence infected him. But he had not expected that a woman who was as beautiful as a vase, or perhaps even more beautiful than a vase, from Zi Chen's group would clearly change the situation. Wherever the divine light passed, the glowing level 9 divine generals lost their luster and fell to the ground. Popping sounds could be heard. Kill them. Seeing this, Luo Bu paled. With a furious roar, he charged forward. He charged at Zi Chen. Because he was certain that Zi Chen was the leader. Your opponent is me. In a flash of black light, the devil ape flew out from behind Zi Chen and charged at Luo Bu. A black staff appeared in his hand, glowing with inscriptions and exuding a powerful aura. The black staff fell, causing the sky to tremble. With a muffled explosion of energy, Luo Bu was sent flying. Chapter 2898. Luo Bu was the strongest in this force. His armor was extremely eye-catching, and his combat strength was also the strongest in the force. From Johan's point of view, Zi Chen was also the strongest in his team. Therefore, the battle between the two of them would be a clash between the strong. Unexpectedly, Zi Chen didn't make a move. Instead, a random person from his team sent Luo Bu flying with a single blow. Luo Bu flew backward. The devil ape's body flickered with black light as it chased after him with its black rod. When he was at level 8, he could already break through the defense of a divine general's armor. Now that he was at level 9, his combat strength was even stronger. It was easy for him to suppress Luo Bu. At the same time, Lei Ting, Xing Chen, and the others also made their moves. Those who weren't wearing armor were all left to Li Ari to deal with. Wherever the heavenly needle passed, one figure after another fell. Without a strong defense, it was unrealistic for them to block Li Ari's attack. One must know that in the entire divine realm, there were definitely no more than 5 heavenly needles of the same quality as Li Ari. Clang! Suddenly, the heavenly piercing divine needle, which had been reaping lives without any hindrance, was repelled. A shield appeared in the hand of a divine general, which blocked the attack. Johann turned around and recognized the divine general. It was Divine General Vader. His shield's defense was pretty good, and it had helped him resolve several crises on the battlefield. After blocking the attack, Vader didn't look happy at all. His expression was still solemn as he kept retreating. Buzz! Li Ari formed a seal with both hands. The heavenly needle that was flying backward flickered with dim divine light again and rushed forward. Clang! Clang! Vader kept retreating in the midst of the continuous attacks. The light on the shield in his hand flickered, and it looked extremely unstable. When the 5th attack landed, a soft sound was heard. The light on the shield disappeared, and Vader's expression froze. His body fell to the ground. There was a wound on his body. He was already dead. The heavenly needle paused for a moment before continuing to fly forward and reap the lives of others. Johann was trembling. That beautiful girl alone was ridiculously strong with the help of the heavenly needle. The tremors were still coming from other places. The people brought by Zi Chen were fighting with the armored divine generals. In the past, Johnny was very envious of them because they had armor on their bodies, which provided them with strong defense and powerful attacks. Every time they hunted beasts in the outside world, they would take on the task of killing the beasts, so they would obtain more resources. As for him, who had nothing, he could only be arranged to go outside and see if there were any newcomers who came here and then invite them to join. But today, his thinking was completely overturned. He saw that those who wore armor were completely suppressed in front of Zi Chen's friends. Regardless of whether it was the person surrounded by lightning or the one surrounded by Xing Chen, they were able to fight several opponents at once without falling into a disadvantageous position. So far, Zi Chen had yet to make a move. Luo Bu was sent flying again and again by that black ape. The anger on his face from before had now turned into shock. Besides Zi Chen, there was another person who hadn't moved. It was also a woman, dressed in a spotless white robe. She stood beside Zi Chen, her beautiful face and gentle eyes watching the battle in the sky. That person was Su Mengyao. She wasn't good at this kind of battle, and there was no need for her to make a move. Surging Buddhist power surged, the entire divine array was filled with golden light, and everyone was dyed golden. Fall. A huge Buddha slammed its palm downwards. There were runes in the center of the palm, shining with golden light, and the sound of Buddhist chanting could be heard. This attack had a divine meaning that could affect one's mind. Johnny looked up and was surprised to see that it was the monk who had released it. In his opinion, the monk had always been unreliable, domineering and arrogant. But now, he was surrounded by golden light, full of compassion, as if he was a saint. His aura made Johnny feel reverent. The palm hit a divine general in armor. He knew that this divine general was called Jacka, and was quite strong. But in front of this palm, Jacka was unable to resist at all. He was sent flying and coughing up blood. The luster of his armor dimmed, and his defense seemed to be on the verge of breaking. Johnny's face was filled with shock, and he found it unbelievable. Bang! At this moment, a rumbling sound came from another direction. That level 9 existence with lightning flashing around him broke through the defense of a general armor. The next moment, a black shadow appeared. Johnny couldn't see that black shadow clearly. He only saw that when the black shadow disappeared, that familiar divine general whose name he couldn't remember suddenly fell to the ground. He was dead. A powerful existence protected by a suit of armor, an existence that he had once envied, had died just like that. And this scene seemed to have a guiding effect. Soon after, the armor of several people was broken. Every time there was the sound of armor breaking, a black light would appear. That black light was the Life Reaper. Kai. A powerful sword chi appeared and headed straight ahead. The sword chi was surrounded by 8 sword wills, and when it struck a divine general, his armor was immediately shattered. The one who had unleashed this attack was a woman holding a sword. She had a ponytail and looked valiant and beautiful. Zi Chen's group had quite a few girls, all of them very beautiful and with different temperaments. At this moment, other than the woman in white, who had yet to attack, all of them were displaying a fighting strength on par with their appearances. This was truly extraordinary. The sound of armor breaking continued, and that black light continued to flash. Zi Chen still did not attack, only coldly looking forward. The number of divine generals around him was dwindling. This divine array isolated the outside space, not only trapping Zi Chen's group, but also trapping them. Of the original 200-some divine generals, less than a quarter were still alive. Luo Bu had tried several times to escape, but the devil ape had firmly entangled him, making it impossible for him to escape. The staff energy that filled the world forced him to passively defend. Misunderstanding. Zi Chen, this is a misunderstanding, Luo Bu called out, his eyes brimming with shock. It was clear that he had miscalculated and provoked a group of existences that he shouldn't have provoked. Zi Chen glanced at Luo Bu and ignored him. This was a world where the strong preyed on the weak. He would not actively harm others, but he would definitely not let go of those who wanted to kill him. Devil ape, you're still too weak. Monk's voice rang out as he flew over. The previous battle was already over. Behind him, the Buddha wielded a demon-subduing pestle and attacked Luo Bu below. Boom! Luo Bu's body trembled and flew backward, the trembling of his defenses becoming even more intense. Black light surged on the devil ape's body as it expanded, transforming into a beam of black light that shot forward. He did not want to leave the enemy to Monk. He raised his black staff, filling the sky with staff shadows. These shadows quickly merged to form a powerful staff attack that smashed down on Luo Bu. This staff attack was so powerful that it caused space to distort and tremble. Boom! Chapter 2899. Hurry up. Everyone, hurry up. If you dilly-dallying, how long will it take us to get there? A divine general in battle armor shouted at the rear. There were many people flying over, all of them 9th-level divine generals. They were all from Huaqi's faction, and after hearing Huaqi's order, they all rushed toward Luo Bu's faction. They were both excited and nervous as they traveled. They knew exactly what they were going to do. Hu Qi was currently several thousand kilometers away from Luo Biyu's faction. This distance was nothing to divine generals, so they could quickly arrive. He had already received news from his spies that Luo Biyu had begun to attack those people and had activated the trapping array. He didn't know how strong those people were, but if they could find the earthflea beast's lair, they definitely weren't weaklings. This was because the earthbender beast would never bring a person wearing armor underground. Furthermore, there weren't many people in this region who could survive after being dragged underground by the earthflea beast. With the divine formation in the way, his men could no longer send messages, so he could only estimate the time. The sound of rushing wind came from the distance. Hu Qi's faction had all arrived. There were more than 400 divine generals, twice as many as Luo Biyu. Seeing these people, Hu Qi smiled, the last bit of nervousness in his heart dispersing. This force was enough to directly attack Luo Biyu's faction, let alone Luo Biyu's faction, which had suffered great losses. He guessed that these people weren't weak, but their numbers were limited. There was no way they could win, so the final victor would still be Luo Biyu. When the time came, Hu Qi believed that Luo Biyu's faction would suffer great losses, and he would be able to take over. Those who surrendered could be recruited, and those who didn't, he would just kill them. With everyone present, he estimated that it was about time. Nodding in satisfaction, he said, "Let's go." Within the divine formation, the demon ape had broken through Luo Biyu's armor with a single strike. The monk glanced at the demon ape in dissatisfaction, then turned to find his next target. "It's a misunderstanding, Zichen, it's all a misunderstanding," Luo Biyu shouted, his voice filled with fear. Zichen remained silent. The silent Zichen was accumulating energy. This was the only movement he had made since the start of the battle. Two different types of energy appeared in each of his hands. These energies fused together and formed a flashing yin and yang lotus. The size of the lotus did not increase, but its color deepened. Wave after wave of fluctuations spread out. This wave of energy was extremely powerful, carrying with it a destructive aura. Johnny's expression was one of shock. Even the dispersed waves were so terrifying. If he was hit by the lotus, would he be able to survive? At this moment, Johnny believed that no one could stop Zichen. There were destructive fluctuations, and no one dared to get close to Zichen. Everyone retreated far away, including those on his side. There was only one person standing there. It was the white-clothed woman who had not fought before. An illusory light flickered on her body. When the light enveloped her body, the destructive ripples that spread out swept past her body when they reached her, but they were unable to cause her any harm. Although she hadn't made a move all this while, just this move alone was already powerful enough. "Zichen, I'm willing to give you all of Luo Biyu's resources. I only hope that you'll let us go." Luo Biyu's voice came again, filled with fear and panic. Johnny looked at Zichen to see how he would react. At this moment, there were less than 10 people left in Luo Biyu's faction. It was obvious that this faction was completely finished. Even if they could stay, they would be swallowed up. Johnny was very glad for his previous choice. He also understood the meaning of the monk's words. His choice was indeed correct. Zichen, Luo Biyu's voice came to an abrupt end. Johnny turned his head to take a look. He was already dead. A black light flashed and disappeared. The person who had always been the strongest in his heart, the person he had always wanted to become, had actually been killed just like that. The battles in other places were also coming to an end. A terrifying aura swept through the place. The space of the entire divine array began to distort. The extremely colorful lotus in front of Zichen flew into the air. It spun in the air, its size constantly expanding. A destructive aura was released. The battle was already over. Zichen, who had not made a move all this time, suddenly made a move. Johnny was slightly startled. He looked up at the sky and thought of the reason. The lotus flew into the air and came into contact with the barrier of the divine array. A destructive aura was released, and a rumbling sound resounded through the world. The barrier of the divine array began to distort. Then, a hole was torn open by the lotus. With a loud bang, the divine array was broken. The array was broken in one strike. Seeing that the divine array had been broken, Johnny was shocked, but at the same time, he heaved a sigh of relief. The battle was over. Luo Biyu's faction was no more. He was the only one alive. But soon, his expression changed again. Many people appeared around them and surrounded them again. There were more people than Luo Biyu's faction. Johnny happened to see the leader before. It was the leader of Hu Qi's faction, Hu Qi. He thought of a possibility and had a bad feeling. He had always thought that Hu Qi and Luo Biyu were about the same level. He did not expect Hu Qi to gather so many people. At this moment, when they saw everything below, their expressions changed one after another. The ground was littered with corpses. Even Luo Biyu was dead. This was clearly different from what they had predicted. This was all part of your plan, wasn't it? At that moment, an indifferent voice sounded out, "Let us fight until both sides are injured. Then you can take your people to clean up the mess." Hu Qi looked over and saw Zi Chen, who had spoken. "That's right. I thought you would die. I didn't expect you to be so strong," Hu Qi said in a low voice as he looked at the others. 20 people could kill more than 200 people. This was not a weak force. However, Hu Qi had more than 400 people, twice as many as Luo Biyu. At that moment, he was considering whether or not to fight again. These people did not seem to be injured at all, but he did not believe that they would not be injured after such a desperate battle. In his opinion, the way he was acting now, he was just putting on an act. However, before he could decide whether to make a move or not, Zi Chen said again, "Since you're here, don't think about leaving." Hu Qi's pupils constricted. What did this mean? Behind Hu Qi, the others were also surprised and confused. However, they soon understood. A heaven-piercing divine needle appeared. Its surface flashed with dazzling divine light as it flew forward. "That's a heaven-piercing divine needle." Seeing this, Hu Qi's expression immediately changed and he cried out in alarm. He did not expect that there would be such a thing among these people. However, this heaven-piercing divine needle did not scare him. Instead, his eyes flashed with greed. "I didn't decide whether to kill you or not, but now it seems that you must die." Hu Qi sneered, his body flashing with killing intent as he prepared to give the order to kill. Cries of alarm suddenly sounded out as another heaven-piercing divine needle appeared in another direction. Chapter 2900. Johann did not expect Zi Chen to have 2 sky-piercing divine needles. Just one of these treasures was already very impressive and could be considered a great opportunity in the God realm. The appearance of 2 sky-piercing divine needles at the same time not only indicated the strength of Zi Chen's side, but also indicated Zi Chen's determination to fight and the direction of the battle. Those without armor were already eliminated after the appearance of the 2 sky-piercing divine needles. In such a situation, the only result of elimination was death. Those who were left with armor were the main force of this battle. There were more than 100 of them, which was not a small threat to Zi Chen's side. This was because there were less than 1/10 of the total number of armor left. Just as the 2 sky-piercing divine needles flew out, Zi Chen moved. His body disappeared as if he had teleported. When he reappeared, he was already in the middle of the crowd. In the next moment, a long saber appeared in his hand. Yin and yang energy continuously poured into the saber as he unsheathed it. The shining saber swept forward, its target being those who were wearing armor. The saber light landed on their bodies, and a powerful shock wave sent their bodies flying. As they flew, the defensive light on their bodies shattered one after another. One saber broke their armor. Moreover, multiple armor defenses shattered at the same time. This was Zi Chen's true strength. Johann's face was filled with shock. This was also the combat strength of the number 1 on the ranking of generals. The ranking on the ranking of generals was controlled by the rules of the God realm. The rules could sense one's own strength through the power of various rules. This could not be faked. The God realm did not have to give a ranking, but as long as a ranking was given, the ranking by the rules was the most convincing. If these people knew Zi Chen's ranking in the God realm, they would not dare to cause trouble for him. After breaking the armor, Zi Chen sheathed his saber and disappeared in a flash. In the next moment, he appeared in another place. The saber light appeared again and broke another divine general's armor. A black light tailed Zichen. After he broke the armor, the black light swept past those divine generals. After that, those divine generals lost their lives. In the blink of an eye, nearly 1/10 of the 100 divine generals were killed. Such a loss caused Huiqi's expression to change greatly. His face was filled with shock and disbelief. The battle had already begun. Miserable cries rang out continuously. Few people could defend against the heaven-connecting divine needles that broke through several seals. Huiqi was both shocked and enraged. He had not expected the other party to be so powerful. "You are courting death," he roared and charged towards Zichen. A divine sword appeared in his hand. A chilling aura emanated from the sword as he thrust it forward. Clang! A clanging sound rang out as a long spear blocked the path in front of Zichen. It was a divine general wearing battle armor. He looked exactly like Zichen. At this moment, his battle armor was emitting a bright light. At the same time, it released a powerful pressure. This was the general armor that had been upgraded to the first rank. The seals on its surface had all been undone, allowing the battle armor to reach its strongest state. This is a mid-tier battle armor. Feeling the aura from the battle armor, Huiqi was shocked. "You just came here. How did you get a mid-tier battle armor?" Then, he thought of a possibility. His expression changed greatly as he cried out involuntarily, "Before you came here, you were already in the top 10 of the ranking of generals?" At this moment, behind the doppelganger, the ranking on the general armor had disappeared. The shocking number 1 was nowhere to be seen. However, Huiqi's cry of surprise was enough to shock everyone. The general armor in the outside world was equivalent to a low-tier battle armor in this world. However, there were differences in strength between low-tier battle armors. Just like in the outside world, the higher one's ranking was, the more patterns could be activated on the battle armor, and the stronger one's defense and combat strength would be. The general armor worn by someone ranked 11th was naturally much stronger than that of the 100th. However, it was different after the top 10. The grade of the battle armor would increase from low-tier to mid-tier. The fact that he had a mid-tier battle armor when he had just arrived was obviously because Zichen's ranking was very high in the outside world. Hearing the cry of surprise, Johnny was also shocked. Although he was level 9 when he was in the divine world, he was still too far away from the divine generals. Not to mention the top 10, he had never even seen the 108th divine generals. He did not expect that the Zichen he saw was actually one of the top 10 experts. This meant that before Zichen came here, there were no more than 9 people in the entire divine world who were stronger than Zichen in combat strength. Hearing the cry of surprise, Monk and the others quickly understood the significance of the battle armor. Their faces were immediately filled with annoyance. If they had the general armor, they believed that their current ranking would be very high too. They might even be able to enter the top 10. The doppelganger did not respond to Huiqi. Instead, he thrust his spear forward. The void distorted violently as if it was going to be pierced by the spear. The spear went straight forward. Clang! Huiqi quickly blocked the attack. The powerful shockwave sent his body flying backward. His combat strength was not weak. However, there was still a big gap between him and the divine generals. On the other side, the doppelganger was still attacking. Every slash of his blade could easily break through the armor. Monk and the others also kept attacking, displaying their combat strength to break through the armor. Watching this battle, Johnny's heart was filled with astonishment. There were only 20 people, but their combat strength was too strong. Facing the encirclement of a group of people, the battle was one-sided. Some of the 9th grade divine generals who did not have battle armor turned around and ran away, ignoring Huiqi. The 2 divine sky-piercing needles were too terrifying. They would die if they ran too slowly. As for the others, they also ran away when they saw that the situation was not good. Not to mention Monk and the others, just take Zichen as an example. One slash of his blade could break the defense of several battle armors. If this continued, how long could these 100 people last? They ran away. Huiqi obviously did not expect to encounter such an existence. He also wanted to run, But unfortunately, he did not have the chance. The doppelganger thrust his spear again and again. Every thrust was fatal. He could only keep dodging. Bang! After a dozen consecutive strikes, Hua Qi's defense was broken and his body flew backward. This time, before Zhong Haotian could catch up, the doppelganger flashed and appeared in front of Hua Qi, thrusting his spear forward. The long spear whistled and pierced Hua Qi's throat. Puff! Blood spurted out. Hua Qi's expression froze. At this moment, his eyes were filled with horror and regret. If he had known this would happen, he would not have come here to cause trouble. Unfortunately, it was too late for him to realize it. The leader of Hua Qi's force was dead. Naturally, the surrounding area was in chaos. The others fled in panic. Monk and the others were chasing after them. The divine sky-piercing needles were also chasing after them. The battle lasted for a while before it completely ended. There were more corpses on the ground. It was a shocking sight. The thick smell of blood lingered for a long time. It was very pungent. Whoosh. Chapter 2901. After the battle ended, the corpses on the ground disappeared, but the stench of blood lingered. Johnny stood there in a daze. He didn't even make a move from the beginning to the end, and the two forces were annihilated just like that. These two forces had existed in this area for a long time. They were wary of each other and didn't dare to start a war. However, they didn't expect that they would be annihilated by just 20 people today. Looking at the empty surroundings, Zi Chen looked back at the crowd and said, "Why don't we wait a little longer?" The reason why they left earlier was that there was some trouble. Now that the trouble was solved, there was no point in leaving. Monk said excitedly, "There's no harm in waiting a little longer. Maybe another one will come. Now, it's time to count the spoils." After killing so many god generals, they believed that they would gain a lot. Moreover, there were 3 forces here. Now that 2 of them were annihilated, there was only 1 left. The others chuckled and agreed to stay for a few days. It wasn't that they were thinking about the 3rd force, but they wanted to familiarize themselves with this place. For example, they hadn't refined the energy hearts of the heavenly beasts and didn't know what special effects they had. Johnny, on the other hand, was shocked by Tyrant's words. Although Dela had many experts and was the strongest among the 3 forces, based on the strength that Zi Chen and the others had displayed, it was possible for them to destroy Dela. After keeping all the loot in Zi Chen's world, Monk entered the world in a flash to count the spoils. Zhong Haotian, Devil Ape, and the others followed closely behind. If Monk was left alone to count, he might lose half of his loot. Wang Xian and the others didn't have the interest and landed beside Zi Chen. Zi Chen walked forward with the girls following behind him. They were chatting and laughing, forming a beautiful scene. Zi Chen landed in the castle again. Among such a large force, only this castle had a chance of survival. Johnny stood in the distance in a daze. "Brother Johnny, let's have a seat inside." Zi Chen invited him with a smile. Johnny smiled bitterly and walked forward. He didn't do anything, but the battle was already over. After returning to the castle, the 2 of them sat down. Su Mengyaro poured tea for the 2 of them. After that, the girls went to another room and gathered together to talk about something. "I truly never expected you all to be this powerful." Johnny let out a sigh as he took the teacup Zi Chen handed over. Zi Chen didn't continue on this topic. "Brother John, do you know the way to Luke City?" Johnny nodded. "I went with Luo Bu once. At that time, I was just a spectator and didn't exchange anything." Thinking back to the last time he went to Luke City, Johnny still felt embarrassed. Zi Chen said, "We will also be heading to Luke City in a few days. If Brother Hardadef doesn't mind, you can take us there." Luke City's location wouldn't change. As long as they walked forward, they would be able to find it. It was obvious that Zi Chen wanted to bring him along, which made Johnny feel very touched. Zi Chen and Johnny chatted for a while longer, before Zi Chen took out 5 heavenly beast hearts and passed them to Johnny. Seeing the 5 heavenly beast hearts, Johnny was startled and said, "Zi Chen, what is the meaning of this? We have gained quite a lot this time, and these can be considered as a share of the loot, but we took the majority." Zi Chen said with a smile, "No, that's too valuable, I can't take it." Johnny refused repeatedly. He had not done anything, and instead it was Zichen who had saved his life. How could he accept Zichen's things? Take it, we still have quite a lot. This can be considered the fee for leading the way, so don't refuse. Zichen placed the 5 heavenly beast crystals on the table in front of him, and a bright light flashed in his hands as a set of battle armor appeared. You were still lacking a set of this, but now you have it. Looking at Johnny, who was about to refuse, Zichen said, "This time, we have gained more than 100 sets, a mere one does not matter. Take it." "Thank you very much." The battle armor was extremely attractive to Johnny, and his expression was extremely excited. This was something he had always wanted, and he had been working hard to get it. He had never expected that it would turn out like this. Next, Johnny went to refine the battle armor, and Zichen took out a heavenly beast's heart to refine. With a move of his spiritual thoughts, a surge of energy emerged from the heavenly beast's heart and entered his body to be absorbed. There was no law power in the heavenly beast's heart, only pure energy. It could strengthen the physical body, but it had no effect on breaking through. Zichen had no regrets about this. He had a level 9 law crystal on him, and he could refine it when he wanted to comprehend the law. These heavenly beast crystals could help increase his strength, which was naturally excellent. Monk and the others had finished counting, and it was a considerable gain. Just the heavenly beast crystals alone had exceeded 2,000, and among them, the 2 leaders of the 2 major forces had the most in their spatial rings. In addition, there were many resources that could be exchanged. Among them, the number of battle armors had exceeded 150 sets. Zichen took out these heavenly beast crystals and distributed them to everyone. Each person could get more than 100 pieces. He had already felt the power of the heavenly beast crystals, and it was very suitable for everyone. "I heard that Dara is bigger than Huichi and Luobu. Why don't we go there and take a look?" After the distribution of the heavenly beast crystals, Monk looked at Zichen and suggested. Zichen shook his head and said, "There is no enmity between the 2 sides. It's not good." Monk said, "What's wrong with it? We're not going to kill anyone. We're just going there to earn some money. If they are in danger, we can help them solve it. They just need to give us some reward afterwards." Zichen laughed when he heard this. This guy obviously wanted to threaten them and get some benefits, but he made it sound so dignified. Of course, he would not agree. If people did not offend him, he would not offend them. This bottom line must not be touched. Monk was the only weirdo in the group of 20 people. No one else raised this point. In the next few days, everyone began to refine the heavenly beast crystals. While increasing their strength, they also had a deeper understanding of this area. 3 days later, a person came. It was the leader of Dara's forces. It was impossible for him not to know that such a big thing had happened in this area, so he rushed over after hearing the news. And he was alone. Dara was brought into the castle and saw Zichen. "Leader Dara, why have you come to our place?" After the 2 sides were introduced and sat down, Zichen asked the other party's purpose. "To be honest, I'm here to discuss the development of this place with leader Zichen," Dara said. Zichen knew the purpose of Dara's visit. He smiled and said, "We will leave here soon and will not stay for long. Besides, we have no interest in this place." Dara nodded and said, "In that case, we will buy the hunting areas of Luobu and Huichi. There are some resources inside. I hope leader Zichen will not refuse." Chapter 2902. Of the 3 factions here, Dala's was the strongest. Hearing that Luobu and Huichi's forces had been destroyed in a day, Dala was shocked, so he immediately came to find Zichen. He already knew what had happened and had made the necessary preparations. In the meantime, in order to protect Dala's forces, the first thing he had to do was give in. Zichen saying that he wanted to leave wasn't out of his expectations. How could a powerhouse of this level stay in such a small place and fight for resources? He was worried that before leaving, he would visit Dala's forces. Hearing Zichen's words, he immediately took out the resources he had prepared in advance and said that he wanted to buy the hunting grounds of the 2 factions. In fact, after Zichen left, this area would naturally be under their control. Such an unnecessary move, and the loss of resources was actually to buy lives. Dayla's forces were the strongest, but not to the point of being ridiculously strong. Zichen's team could destroy 2 factions in a day without suffering any losses, so it would be easy for them to destroy Dayla's forces. The real use of these resources was to buy lives and the safety of Dayla's forces. Looking at the space divine ring in front of him, Zichen said, "Thank you, Leader Dayla." In fact, there was no need at all, because Zichen didn't plan to attack Dayla. He had killed countless people, but he wasn't bloodthirsty. This seemed contradictory, but it was the truth. Since Dayla had brought the resources, Zichen didn't refuse. Otherwise, Dayla would feel uneasy before they officially left. Seeing Zichen put away the space divine ring, Dayla sighed in relief. This action meant that Dayla's forces were saved. In the future, there would only be Dayla's forces in this area. Compared to the loss of resources, Dayla's forces would undoubtedly be more powerful in the future. Dayla didn't stay for long. After a while, he bid farewell and left. Zichen put away the space divine ring, which contained 500 heavenly beast crystals and other resources. He was full of sincerity. After staying here for a few more days, everyone refined some heavenly beast crystals and decided to go deeper. After putting away the castle, the team headed east. This direction was the dangerous area that Su Mengyaro had sensed before, and it was also the place that led to Luke City. Johnny was in the middle of the group. He was clad in battle armor and divine light swirled around his body. As they walked towards the east, the number of heavenly beasts they encountered increased significantly, and most of them were in groups of 3 to 5, unlike the ones they had encountered earlier, which were mostly moving alone. A small group of about 6 crocodile-tailed stone-devouring beasts appeared in front of them. The monk shouted as he flew forward. It was as if he had been injected with chicken blood. He was always so excited. Zhong Haotian, who was standing at the side, disappeared. Thunder, Xing Chen, and the demon ape flew forward. Tyrant sent a crocodile-tailed stone-eater beast flying with a single strike. The next moment, a black light flashed and the aura of the crocodile-tailed stone-eater beast vanished. A one-hit kill. The devil ape swung its black stick upwards and sent a stone-eater crocodile-tailed stone-eater beast flying. Xing Chen and Lei Ting also made their moves. Each of them took on one of the stone-eater crocodile-tailed stone-eater beasts while Tyrant took on the second target. After a while, the battle ended and everyone flew back. Zichen and the others were already used to this scene, so they didn't find it strange. But Johnny, who was at the back, was shocked. This team's combat power was a little too strong. When they encountered the third group of opponents, Zichen made his move. Just as Johnny thought Zichen was about to show his prowess, he was sent flying by the stone-eater crocodile-tailed stone-eater beast and landed on the ground. Johnny was very surprised. With Zichen's combat power, this shouldn't be the case. After landing, Zichen got up and continued to attack the stone-eater crocodile-tailed stone-eater beast before landing again. This repeated twice, and the battle ended. After that, Zichen didn't make his move. When they encountered the fifth group of opponents, Zichen made his move again. This time, when his body landed on the ground, Johnny discovered that Zichen's figure had disappeared when the smoke and dust dissipated. Looking at the place where Zichen disappeared, Johnny's eyes widened in shock. He finally understood why Zichen kept landing. At the same time, he also understood how Zichen got the Earthmelter beast previously. He had never seen anyone who dared to try like this. Boom! A moment later, the ground shook, and Zichen's figure appeared. There was a smile on his face, indicating that he had gained a good harvest. Compared to killing them one by one, this method was undoubtedly faster and more effective. As they moved forward, Johnny once again witnessed the team's powerful combat power. Zhong Haotian was in charge of killing and usually killed with a single blow. The monk's defense was extremely strong, and no one could break through it. Xing Chen, Lei Ting, and the others were also very powerful. With the help of their armor, they could be said to be invincible. Zichen was in charge of luring and killing the Earthmelter beast. In contrast, the beautiful women who were equally powerful had nothing to do at this time. They were chatting and laughing. Of course, Johnny didn't make his move either. It wasn't that he didn't want to, but that he didn't have the chance. When he went out with Luo Buyu's forces, they would attack when they encountered a small group of stone-eater crocodile-tailed stone-eater beast. Even then, there would be casualties. However, with Zichen and the others, he didn't need to make a move at all. Zichen's team could sweep through everything. It was like this for several days. Johnny couldn't find a chance to make a move. One day, there was a sudden tremor in front of them. The ground rumbled as if there were thousands of beasts running. Hearing this voice, everyone's expression changed, and they released their spiritual senses. "It's the azure sky-winged eagle," Johnny cried out in alarm. His face turned extremely pale. At this time, he raised his head and looked at the sky. He saw black clouds appear in the sky and were heading in their direction. Zichen had already released his spiritual senses, so he could see the black clouds. Those weren't black clouds, but azure sky-winged eagles with their wings spread. After spreading their wings, they were hundreds of feet in size. At this time, there were dozens of them gathered together. They looked like a huge black cloud. Zichen soared into the sky and saw a line in front of him. That line was made up of stone-eater beasts. Groups of stone-eater beasts were running wildly. The ground shook. Monk also soared into the sky. After seeing the scene in front of him, his expression became serious. Although he had the strongest defense, he still felt afraid when he saw the seemingly endless stone-eater beasts. The others' expressions also became very serious. "Zichen, let's leave this place quickly. The most terrifying thing isn't the stone-eater beasts. It's the azure sky-winged eagles in the sky. Once they set their eyes on us, they won't rest until we die." Johnny's frightened voice rang out. "These are resources. Wouldn't it be a pity to waste them?" Monk raised his head and looked at the black clouds in the sky. His gaze fell on the stone-eater beasts again. _________________ PS. I saw the editor's message saying that there were complaints from readers about the death of Divine Generals 104, 05, and 06 in Chapter 2759, the arrival of the war generals, but they were alive in Chapter 2766. I don't agree with the content. I think it's illogical. Here's an explanation. The ranking of Divine Generals isn't exclusive to individuals. Once they lose their combat ability or are killed, the God Realm will arrange for a new Divine General to replace them. Chapter 2903. The azure sky-winged eagle was also a resource, a very precious resource. In terms of value, it was much more valuable than the crocodile-tailed stone-devouring beasts. However, there were only a few dozen of them. The number of crocodile-tailed stone-devouring beasts was almost endless. If the monk had to choose, he would obviously choose the latter. The others also looked at the crocodile-tailed stone-devouring beasts. Not to mention how many heavenly beast crystals this meant, just the resources here could be used to refine many powerful armors. These resources were not only useful to them, but also to the Life Star. They had been here for a few days. When had they ever encountered such a large number of crocodile-tailed stone-devouring beasts? This was something that could only be encountered by chance. If they missed this opportunity, it would be very difficult to encounter it again. "You're willing to give up?" Tyrant looked at Zichen and asked. Johnny was anxious. These people were too bold. There were only 20 of them. Did they want to take these crocodile-tailed stone-devouring beasts? One had to know that their charging power was very terrifying. No one dared to stop them, and no one could stop them. Even the monk, who had a strong defense, did not dare to stop them directly. No one dared to stop them directly, not even Zichen. However, they were looking at Zichen now. This was because Zichen was the only one present who had the means and the ability to help them reap great rewards. Zichen exhaled and said, "This is something that can only be encountered by chance. Of course, we can't miss it." Johnny was shocked. He did not expect that even Zichen would be abnormal. Hearing Zichen's words, everyone revealed smiles on their faces before dispersing in all directions. Zichen stood in the air, light surging on his body. The power of the rules fell from the sky, shrouding the area in front of Zichen. The space in front of him rippled and became unstable. A sharp and ear-piercing sound came from the sky. This sound was very unpleasant and carried some kind of soul attack. These crocodile-tailed stone-devouring beasts were so chaotic because of the sound of the heavenly winged eagle. The ground shook as if there was an earthquake. Those on the ground could no longer stand, so they all flew into the air. They retreated far away, and Zichen stood in front alone. The crocodile-tailed stone-devouring beasts came like an unstoppable flood. Wang. When they arrived in front of Zichen, they stirred up ripples in the space and disappeared into the ripples. Whoosh! Whoosh! The crocodile-tailed stone-devouring beasts rushed into the ripples and disappeared. The ripples were connected to a space. To be more precise, it was connected to Zichen's world. At this moment, these crocodile-tailed stoniator beasts had all entered Zichen's world through the ripples. Zichen's heavenly jewel world was extremely large, and it was more than enough to contain all these heavenly beasts. Looking at the disappearing crocodile tail stone eater, Johnny became extremely shocked. He didn't expect Zichen to have such a strange method. Roar! A sharp sound came from the sky. It was those azure sky-winged eagles that saw this scene and swooped down. Shua! Monk flew into the sky and the light shield in his hand shone brightly. He was like a cannonball flying into the sky. Peng! Radiance curled up around his body as he collided with a heavenly winged condor. Powerful energy rippled outwards. Monk's body sank and fell more than 30 meters while that heavenly winged condor flew back into the sky. The sharp sound rang out again as another azure sky-winged condor swooped down at Monk. Monk dodged and dodged this attack. He dodged the first attack but couldn't dodge the second. They were very fast. When one missed, the second immediately followed, catching Monk head-on. Monk had a defense that the heavenly winged condor's sharp claws couldn't break. It could only bring him up into the sky. Clang! Thunder slashed down with his saber. Boundless lightning flashed. After hitting the heavenly winged condor's sharp claws, there was a loud clang. Sparks flew everywhere as thunder was forced back. Its defense is comparable to metal. Its only weakness is its eyes. Johnny, who was also flying into the sky, reminded loudly. He finally had a chance to make a move, but the opponent was too strong. Fart! Zhong Haotian appeared silently and stabbed the long spike in his hand at the azure sky-winged condor's eye. Zhong Haotian's figure disappeared as the sharp claws slashed across his body. After losing an eye, this azure sky-winged condor's body became unstable. Zhong Haotian, who reappeared, had a bloody claw mark on his chest. His reaction was very fast. Fart! Immediately after, another attack landed and entered the azure sky-winged condor's other eye. This time, there was a sharp beam of light that pierced the brain. The azure sky-winged condor let out a shriek as its body fell to the ground. Zichen opened his world, and those stone-eater beasts charged in wave after wave. He looked up at the battle in the sky and said, "Everyone else, back off. Lil, use the heaven-connecting divine needle." Since the azure sky-winged condor's weakness was its eyes, it was best to use the heaven-connecting divine needle in such a situation. When the others heard that, they backed off. A beam of light appeared beside Zichen. It was his clone. In such a situation, he needed his clone to personally control the heaven-connecting divine needle. The heaven-connecting divine needle turned into a beam of divine light and flew into the sky. In the next moment, it flickered and entered the eye of an azure sky-winged condor. Fart! The heaven-connecting divine needle was very small. After piercing the eye, it flew out from the inside of the body. With a shriek, the azure sky-winged condor fell to the ground. On the other side, Lil also controlled the heaven-connecting divine needle and started to attack those azure sky-winged condors. The captured monk was already saved. He flew to Lil's side. Those azure sky-winged condors were very fast. Previously, the monk was hit. Fortunately, he had a strong defense. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. He returned to Lil's side to protect him. At the same time, Lei Ting and the others were also guarding here. An azure sky-winged condor flew towards Lil like a bolt of lightning. Lil's expression didn't change as he controlled the heaven-connecting divine needle to turn back. Clang! However, this attack didn't hit the eye. Instead, It hit the feathers on its body and exploded with a clang. Under the attack of the azure sky-winged condor, the heaven-connecting divine needle would lose its accuracy. Scram! Seeing the azure sky-winged condor approaching, the devil ape let out a loud shout. Its body immediately enlarged as it struck forward with its rod. Boom! There was a huge energy shock. The azure sky-winged condor was sent flying by the rod, and a few iron feathers fell. Pu. The heaven-connecting divine needle that didn't hit its target previously launched another attack at this moment, successfully hitting the opponent's eye. At this moment, many people were protecting Lil. As for the clone, no one came over. Only Zi Chen was standing there. An azure sky-winged condor attacked the clone. Zi Chen took a step forward and punched out. The fist light enveloped by the yin-yang fist light soared into the sky. Boom! With a loud boom, this azure sky-winged condor was sent flying. Chapter 2904. The azure sky-winged eagle was an extremely powerful heavenly beast, and its forte was its speed. Even the monk had not been able to dodge it earlier. When Johnny and the others had formed a team to hunt, whenever they met a few azure sky-winged eagles together, there would always be heavy casualties. Now, Zi Chen had 2 sky-piercing needles, and it was a complete counter to the azure sky-winged eagles. Johnny did not attack, standing at a distance and watching. He had never thought that someone would dare to attack the azure sky-winged eagles when they were hunting. Not only that, they could even deal with the crocodile tailstone eater that had turned into a flood. Zi Chen had not only done that. He had actually succeeded. The number of azure sky-winged eagles in the sky grew fewer and fewer, and the crocodile tailstone eater below had reached its final stage. In the end, all the crocodile tailstone eater entered Zi Chen's world, and the azure sky-winged eagles were just as Johnny had said. They would not rest until they were all dead. After the battle ended, everyone began to clean up the battlefield. All the materials from the heavenly beasts here could be used to forge weapons. In Johnny's words, this place was rich in weapons and armor. After cleaning up the battlefield, everyone continued forward. Perhaps the azure sky-winged eagles had gathered all the heavenly beasts here, but they did not meet any other heavenly beasts as they continued forward. Johnny had stayed here for thousands of years. Only when he went out to hunt did he have the chance to eat meat to increase his physical strength. He could not kill the crocodile tailstone eater alone. Every time they returned, everyone would distribute the resources according to their contribution. His combat strength was at the bottom of the 9th level, and he had not accumulated enough resources to exchange for armor in these few years. His vitality had not increased much either. It was only after meeting Zi Chen that his luck had changed. These few days, he had been eating meat every day, and his vitality had increased a lot. Beast meat could increase vitality, and this was an extremely good thing for Zi Chen and the others. They would devour a lot of meat every day, refining it to increase their vitality. Besides that, Zi Chen and the others would also refine those heavenly beast crystals to increase their physical strength. The 3 forces met. Luke City was very far away, and it would take a long time to travel. After another half a month, they finally arrived at Luke City. It was a huge city, the only gathering place within a radius of several million miles. Many 9th-grade divine generals gathered here. There was no one guarding the city gate, but many divine generals were going in and out. Then, Zi Chen noticed that a group of youths had gathered outside the city. Whenever a divine general entered or left, they would rush forward. When Zi Chen saw what they were doing, his expression changed. They were begging. Those who came here were all level 9 divine generals. Only existences of this level could come here. Why would there be non-level 9 divine generals begging here? Zi Chen was stunned. They are all aboriginals. Johnny saw Zi Chen's doubts and said aloud. In fact, Zi Chen wasn't the only one who had such doubts. Everyone who came here for the first time had similar doubts when they saw the beggars. Aboriginals? Zi Chen was stunned when he heard this. The others also looked at Johnny, looking very puzzled. Their ancestors have lived here for generations, and they have mastered a kind of divine ability. Johnny said, in Luke City, the noblest are the aboriginals. At the same time, the lowest are the aboriginals. This has something to do with the strength of the divine ability. Chen asked. Johnny nodded and said, "These natives are gifted with the ability to refine weapons, which is the armor we wear. Once it is awakened, we can survive by refining the armor. But they haven't awakened, or they haven't awakened for the time being." Everyone was puzzled. These aboriginals are a strange race. They need about 1,000 years to be born, and they need to grow in units of 1,000 years. When they grow to 8,000 years, they will awaken their divine ability. And they haven't awakened their divine ability after 8,000 years. Johnny continued, "They have a second chance to awaken, and that is when they grow to 10,000 years. In history, there are records of aboriginals who have awakened at 10,000 years, and there are quite a few. So while these people may be able to awaken, most of them won't. They needed 1,000 years to be born and 10,000 years to grow." While everyone was shocked by the aboriginals, they were even more puzzled. Monk asked doubtfully, "Since they were born, what about their parents? Why don't they care about them and let them come here to beg? Is this a test?" Johnny said, "Rather than calling it a test, it's better to call it fending for themselves. Since they can't awaken their divine ability at 8,000 years, the chances of them awakening at 10,000 years are slim. But there are precedents, so they will survive in various ways in these 2,000 years. During this time, they can temper their minds, and maybe they can awaken. But once 10,000 years have passed and they haven't awakened their divine ability, their vigorous vitality will fade away until one day they sense that their time is near. They will naturally decompose and return to the void." This was what Johnny had heard when Luobu told everyone the last time they were here. Today, he told them the exact same thing. Everyone was shocked, but they couldn't understand it. Wang Xiana said, "Since they will die if they can't awaken their divine ability after 10,000 years, why don't they let them stay with their parents for the last time?" The others nodded. After all, they had been nurtured for the first 8,000 years. Why would they care about the last 2,000 years? After all, how could they not have feelings when they were born after 1,000 years? Johnny shook his head and said, "I don't know. Maybe the aboriginals don't raise idlers, or maybe they don't care about blood ties. But there's a widely spread saying that the aboriginals who can't awaken their divine ability are considered a disgrace and an anomaly among the races. They are not recognized by the aboriginals. No matter what the reason was, it was enough to prove how cruel it was." Chen released his spiritual senses and extended it to the distance. Soon, it spread to the end of the city wall. During this time, he saw many beggars. They were all thinking of ways to beg. Among them, a young beggar caught Chen's attention. He didn't beg, but sat there with his back against the city wall. He looked up at the golden sun in the sky. There were vicissitudes and tiredness in his eyes, but there was also a sense of relief. It was as if he had seen through the mundane world. Suddenly, his body lit up with light. The light grew brighter and brighter, until it was very bright. In the next moment, light spots flew out from his body. His body decomposed into countless light spots and slowly disappeared in the air. Gone. Was this the end? The others didn't notice this scene, but Chen did. There was a look of shock on his face. This race was simply too inconceivable. Chapter 2905. These beggars all looked like teenagers. It was hard to imagine that they had lived for at least 8,000 years. Chen could not sense any divine power fluctuations from them. If they were not deliberately hiding their strength, then they were just ordinary people. Scram! Scram! In front of Chen's group, another group entered the city. They were the first to encounter the beggars and scolded them. During this time, there was an energy fluctuation, and the beggars all retreated, unable to approach. They are indeed ordinary people. Seeing this, Chen's expression changed. The expressions of the people around him also changed. In such a dangerous world, how could these ordinary people survive? Those youths were walking towards them, obviously wanting to beg for money. Chen asked, "Do they want cultivation resources?" Johnny nodded. Yes, they want resources, but they only want resources from this world. The law crystals and divine crystals of the divine realm are useless to them, so they don't want them. This was a strange race. As Chen thought to himself, those youths had already arrived before him. Their faces were dirty, and their eyes were black and bright. They looked very pitiful, and they habitually asked for mercy. They can give or not. Even if we don't give them resources, they won't die. Because they can absorb the power of heaven and earth, their lives won't be in danger. Johnny said. A group of ordinary people who could absorb the power of heaven and earth. This made Zichen feel more and more strange. Before he could say anything, Su Mengyaro and the others had already taken out some resources. There were bones from the crocodile-tailed stoniator beast, as well as some cut meat. Everyone had some. These young beggars thanked them profusely, looking pleasantly surprised as they skillfully took these things. A large number of people went in and out of Luke City every day, and it was not always possible to meet generous people. Kindness would be distributed by the girls in the group. Zichen stood at the back and watched all this. He noticed that when the young beggars came forward, a person followed behind them. It was a beggar who looked younger. He stood at the back and did not come forward, or rather, he did not intend to compete with them. His face was also dirty, but his eyes were not looking at the things that Su Mengyaro and the others gave him. Instead, he was looking at them with a scrutinizing gaze. His gaze moved quickly and landed on the others, quickly glancing over everyone's faces and bodies. At this time, everyone was looking at the beggars in front of them and did not notice the scene behind them. Only Zichen noticed it. He and the beggar looked at each other, and the young beggar immediately looked away. At this time, the beggars in front had already taken their things and left after thanking them. Finally, the young beggar stepped forward. He didn't say anything. Su Mengyaro once again gave some resources to the young beggar. Thank you. The young beggar thanked him and returned with the resources. In the distance, more people were running in this direction. They were the young beggars in the vicinity. There were many of them, and there were even more in the distance. Trouble is coming. When Johnny saw this, he took a few steps forward. The armor on his body glowed, and an intense pressure was released. The young beggars in the distance stopped one after another. Their faces were filled with fear. Johnny's aura made them feel fear. They stood there in fear, but their innocent eyes were staring at Su Mengyaro and the others. They looked pitiful and innocent. After Su Mengyaro and the others looked at each other, they took out a lot of beast meat instead of beast bones. They put these things on the ground and then walked to the side. This scene attracted the attention of many god generals in the distance. Everyone looked sideways. Although beast meat was the cheapest among heavenly beasts, it was still a resource. Even a level 9 might not be able to get it. Su Mengyaro and the others took out so much without blinking, proving that they were very rich. Of course, being rich often meant being powerful here. After putting down the beast meat, Su Mengyaro and the others left. The young beggars rushed forward. They looked at the beast meat, and their pitiful and innocent eyes turned fierce. After that, they didn't give in to each other and started to hit each other hard. Sensing the scene behind them, Su Mengyaro and the others were stunned. However, they didn't stop them in the end. They just walked forward. Zichen's spiritual senses had been focused on the young beggar that he had been paying attention to earlier. He saw that after the young beggar returned with the resources, those who had already taken the resources immediately went up to him and beat him up, robbing him of all the resources he had. The young man fell to the ground with blood at the corner of his mouth. He didn't fight back from the beginning to the end. He didn't have the consciousness to protect those resources with his life. When he was being beaten up, he had already thrown the resources away. He didn't expect to be beaten up again. Those young beggars took the resources and left, leaving the young man lying there. This scene happened not far away, and everyone also noticed it. Although they were a little emotional, their expressions quickly recovered. They had lived for a long time and had seen all kinds of scenes and people. This scene in front of them was nothing. Everyone no longer cared about what was happening around them. At this moment, all their attention was on the city. Zichen noticed that those young beggars on the ground got up and walked toward the city. His eyes were calm. There was no resentment after being robbed and beaten. Zichen felt that it was very strange. Then, he frowned because the young beggar was coming toward them again. The young beggar wasn't fast. Zichen and the others smoothly entered the city. The city was very lively. Divine generals came and went. There were many shops and all kinds of armor on both sides of the street. These armors were equivalent to general armor in the outside world, but the styles were more varied. Next to the general armor, there were corresponding weapons. The armors around them dazzled everyone. Not only were there armor, but there were also light armors that looked very light. Seeing the general armor along the way, even Su Mengyaro and the others were tempted. However, these things were made for the god race. Although they had good defense, they weren't suitable for them. Zichen noticed that the young beggar followed them into the city and kept following them. He didn't deliberately get close. He kept about 100 meters away from the group. When everyone stopped, he would also stop in the distance and watch them quietly. As the group moved forward, he would continue to follow. In this way, they walked through several streets. He didn't take the initiative to move forward. Sometimes, Su Mengyaro and the others would stay in a shop for a long time. The beggar would also wait patiently outside. They kept walking like this. The beggar followed them for half a day. They had long noticed that a young beggar was following them. However, they didn't know what he wanted to do. Was he keeping an eye on their tracks? But wasn't he too careless in hiding himself? Seeing that the sky was getting dark, they decided to find a shop owner first. At this moment, the young beggar who hadn't moved all this time suddenly ran over. Chapter 2906. The youth didn't try to suppress his voice. Not only did Zichen hear it clearly, but so did the divine generals nearby. Zichen stared blankly at the youth. He didn't expect that the youth would follow them for half a day just to express this. The surrounding divine generals were also stunned, but they soon burst out laughing. This trick again. Looks like it's not that we're lucky to run into them every time, but that they're saying it to everyone. I don't know how many times I've heard similar words. Haha, looks like they're desperate to find a sucker. Let's see which idiot will fall for it. The youth's expression didn't change when he heard the surrounding jeers. He stared at Zichen in the crowd and said, "Believe me, in 1,000 years, I'll awaken for the second time. At that time, I'll definitely be able to awaken my innate ability." The surrounding laughter grew louder. Being nurtured for 1,000 years, the chances of awakening were less than 1 in 10,000. Who would be so stupid to do such a thankless task? Looking at the frowning Zichen, Johnny said, "Although we didn't encounter such a thing the last time we came, it's said that it's not that rare. Some of the natives who haven't awakened are very unwilling, so they try to join other factions to obtain resources and try to awaken again. But..." Johnny glanced at the youth and said in a low voice, "But none of the natives brought back by those factions have awakened, and they've never brought back beggars who are waiting to die. Instead, they bring back natives who are unwilling to accept their fate and rely on hard work. The most important thing is that no one knows how old the Aboriginals are. At this time, he said that they still have 1,000 years to 10,000 years. Maybe they only have 600 years left. As for the remaining 400 years, they might return to nothingness one day. In everyone's view, these natives who were beggars were dishonest. In the beginning, many factions did their best to nurture them, but as time passed, they returned to nothingness one after another. Not a single faction had successfully nurtured a second awakening native. In the face of the surrounding sarcasm, the young beggar was expressionless. He stared at Zichen, but his eyes were very calm. It was as if he already knew that he had the final say in the group. Faced with such an unpredictable situation, everyone had no idea what to do. The young man looked at Zichen, and Zichen looked back at the young man. The two of them looked at each other, but neither of them flinched. "All right." Zichen nodded and said, "You can follow us." The crowd burst into an uproar, and the mocking voices disappeared. Everyone looked at Zichen, as if they had seen a ghost in broad daylight. Even if they really saw a ghost, they shouldn't have such a big change because they were divine generals and weren't afraid of those things. "I'll take you to take a bath first, then change your clothes," Zichen said calmly, ignoring the gazes of the surrounding divine generals. The young beggar nodded and stopped talking. "That works too." Everyone around was dumbfounded. Some of the beggars in the distance also had a change in their expressions. They saw 2 more people quickly coming forward. Take me in. After 1,200 years, I will also be able to awaken my innate ability. Me too. I will be able to awaken it after 1,100 years. Two more young beggars blocked the way. They also stared at Zichen without averting their eyes, looking very sincere. Let's go, Zichen said indifferently. A wave of energy spread out from his body, pushing the two away. Why do you want him to leave us? Don't we look sincere enough? One of the young beggars said unhappily. He has been here for more than 1,000 years. He can't live for more than 1,000 years. Hearing the young man's words, the expressions of Tyrant and the others changed. Zichen's expression didn't change. He said, let's go. We have already told you the truth, but you still don't want to listen. You deserve to be deceived. The young beggar said coldly. Zichen left with his group, leaving the two indignant beggars behind. The divine generals in the surroundings discussed animatedly, and soon left. The two beggars returned with nothing and were very depressed. They cursed that damn guy's luck and then turned back. However, they didn't leave the city. Instead, they walked toward a certain place in the city. When they came to a tall house, the two went around the house to the back door and knocked on the door. After a while, the back door opened. An old man who looked like a housekeeper looked at the two. We found a big fish, one of the beggars said. The old man stepped aside and gestured for the two to enter. Sir, we found a big fish. The two of them entered the house with great familiarity and shouted from outside the main hall. How big is it? An indifferent voice came from the main hall. A very big fish. They are very generous to us. Not only do they have resources, but they also have a few beauties. They are all the type that you like. Sir, you can send someone to check. They are in the city. 2 pieces of heavenly beast crystals flew out from the living room. The indifferent voice sounded again, if it is true, you will be rewarded. The two took the heavenly beast crystals and thanked him profusely. Then, they left through the back door. Zichen's group found an inn. Under the strange gazes of the immortal generals, the young beggar followed them upstairs. The young beggar went to his room to take a bath. The others gathered in Zichen's room. Everyone looked at Zichen. They didn't ask for the reason, but their expressions showed that they needed an explanation. Zichen thought for a while and said, I feel that there is something unusual about that young man. This was Zichen's explanation. Although the others didn't feel that way, they didn't say anything. Although the young man was an ordinary person, Zichen had the world. He didn't need to worry that he would be a burden. Not long after, there was a knock on the door. Come in. The door was pushed open and the young man walked out. He had changed into a new set of clothes. His young face looked very handsome. People's eyes couldn't help but light up. After coming in, the young man bowed to everyone and said, Kang Mo thanks everyone for taking me in. Zichen said, we won't stay here for long. You can leave with the group, right? Kang Mo said, Kang Mo will go wherever Sir goes. Zichen nodded and said, that's good. What resources can help you increase the success rate of your awakening? Kang Mo said, heavenly beast crystals. Zichen took out 3 pieces of heavenly beast crystals and put them on the table. He said, here are 3 pieces. Take them and refine them first. You can ask me for more when you are done. Kang Mo was stunned when he saw the 3 pieces of heavenly beast crystals. He didn't immediately respond. What's wrong? Not enough. As he spoke, Zichen took out another 3 pieces. Kang Mo came to his senses. He looked at Zichen and asked in confusion, Sir, why don't you ask me how old I am? Chapter 2907. The reason why Zichen was willing to take the youth with him wasn't because he heard the youth's words and felt that he could trust him. He also didn't really want to gain anything from the youth. He just felt that the youth looked a little different. At the same time, he felt emotional when he saw the other youth turn into nothingness. He had the ability to help a person. Even if he couldn't help him awaken, at least he could help him in the future. Of course, all of this was because he liked and appreciated the youth. Thank you. Kang Mo stepped forward to take the celestial beast crystal and thanked him again. You should be familiar with Luke City, right? Chen asked after seeing Kang Mo take the celestial beast crystal. Yes. Kang Mo nodded. Then tomorrow morning, take us around the city and see if there's anything suitable for us, Chen said. Only the celestial beast crystal is suitable for you, sir. Nothing else is suitable. Kang Mo looked at them and said, your auras are obviously different from others, so the armors and weapons sold here are not suitable for you. Chen was surprised by his explanation and asked again, is there any other way? Kang Mo shook his head and said, there's no other way, unless it's tailor-made. But in Luke City, no one should be willing to spend the effort to tailor it for you. Even if they were willing, they might not have the ability. Chen nodded and didn't have any other hope. Seeing that Chen didn't have any other instructions, Kang Mo retreated. The others discussed a few more things and returned to their rooms to rest. The next day, everyone wandered around Luke City under Kang Mo's lead. The armors sold in the shops were tailor-made with divine power as the foundation. They were treasures to divine generals, but to people like Chen, they were useless. Of course, not all of them were useless. They were useful to Yi Qian, Li Ari, and Johnny. After looking at a few shops and not finding any suitable armors, Chen looked at Kang Mo and asked, is there a place that sells mid-grade armors? Kang Mo said, there's only one place, but the mid-grade armors there are very expensive because no one in Luke City can make them. The battle armors here are all purchased from Tenny City. If you go to Tenny City, it will be much cheaper. Chen looked at Yi Qian. Yi Qian said, we're going to go deeper anyway, and we're not in a hurry. Chen nodded and said, all right, let's talk about it when we reach Tenny City. At this time, Chen noticed that the two young beggars from yesterday were not far away. They were looking at him, or more accurately, at Kang Mo, with a bit of coldness and resentment in their eyes. Kang Mo obviously also noticed the existence of these two people, but he ignored them and came to Chen's side and whispered, sir, you must be careful when you go out of the city. I suspect that your actions yesterday have attracted the attention of some people. Or perhaps, he has been deliberately betrayed. This had almost become an unwritten rule among the beggars. They treated everyone who gave them resources as fat sheep and informed certain forces in the city. Because these fat sheep could only give them resources once, they would definitely not give them the next time. Therefore, they didn't mind using these people's identities to go in another direction to exchange for some resources. Chen was very surprised to know that such a situation would happen, but he didn't say much. In terms of human nature, he had his own unique views. After staying in the city for a few days, they decided to leave. These days, they almost didn't exchange for other resources because those resources were useless. On the same night, Johnny expressed his intention to leave. He had the battle armor, and his battle strength had been greatly improved. He already had the power to protect himself here, and it wouldn't be a problem even if he joined a force. Chen and the others wanted to go deeper, but he didn't want to leave, or it could be said that he didn't have the strength to go deeper for the time being. He wanted to slowly become stronger here, and then go deeper, instead of relying on Chen's protection. Chen respected Johnny's choice and left him a generous amount of resources that day. Early the next morning, they left Luke City and headed to the next city. The second city was Tenny City, which was much bigger than Luke City. It was also much more lively. When they were leaving, some young beggars came forward. When they saw Kang Mo in the group, their eyes revealed undisguised jealousy. This time, they didn't give anything, and everyone flew towards Tenny City. Chen released his spiritual thoughts and saw the two young beggars running towards the city. He smiled. Kang Mo noticed Chen's smile, but didn't ask anything. Stop. Less than a mile out of the city, a cold voice came from behind. A divine general in battle armor flew towards them. Chen and the others stopped and turned to look at him. What? Monk stared at him. He can't leave. The divine general in battle armor pointed at Kang Mo. Monk's face revealed a hint of anger, and he was about to explode. Why? Chen was the first to speak. The owner reported that he lost something, and I suspect that he stole it, so he can't leave. The divine general said coldly. Chen smiled faintly and said, since he can't leave, then can we leave? The divine general was stunned, and then his expression changed. He said, no, You can't leave either. I suspect that he has already given it to you. You idiot. If you want to imitate others, just say so. Why do you have to find such a lame excuse? The monk mocked, I really don't know. You're just one person. Where did you get the courage to stop us? As soon as Monk finished speaking, figures flew out of the city one after another. Most of them were wearing battle armor. There were dozens of people surrounding them. Zichen looked at the divine general and said, Are you planning to rob us? You stole something, and now you're saying that we're robbing you? You're really good at inverting right and wrong, the divine general said coldly, a cold light flashing in his eyes. Then what do you want? If you know what's good for you, then come back with us for inspection. Otherwise, don't blame us for being rude. Murderous intent surged, and the divine general's bodies lit up. Zichen shook his head and said, This show is too fake. Why don't we just attack? As soon as he finished speaking, Li Ari decisively attacked. There were no rules here, and these people were just trying to find a cover for themselves. In the end, it all depended on combat strength. Li Ari took a step forward, and the heaven-piercing divine needle turned into a beam of divine light and flew out. Chapter 2908. In the blink of an eye, all the divine generals without armor fell into a pool of blood and died. Such a scene caused the surrounding divine generals' expressions to change drastically. Their faces were filled with fear. The young beggars in the distance were even more shocked. Heavenly Needle. The divine general who came out first saw this scene and his pupils constricted. He was very surprised, and then a look of greed appeared in his eyes. The number of divine generals was reduced by a third. Moreover, the other party had Heavenly Needle, so ordinary divine generals were vulnerable. A beam of light appeared in the divine general's hand. The light soared into the sky and exploded into energy. It was a message. How dare you kill people here? You're dead meat. After sending the message, the divine general snorted coldly. His cold expression was filled with arrogance. You're really shameless. But I like your shamelessness. I hope you won't disappoint me. The monk smiled, but his smile was filled with greed. The divine general was stunned. He didn't understand the origin of the monk's greed. After a few breaths, a cold voice came from the city. Who sent the message? A murderous aura surged out of the city like a surging tide. The surrounding temperature suddenly dropped. A person walked out. He was wearing a divine armor and his body was surrounded by divine light. He released a murderous aura, like a general who had fought for thousands of years. A group of people followed behind him. Each of them was wearing a general's armor. Their combined aura was very terrifying. The young beggars in the distance had never seen such a scene. They were so scared that they didn't even dare to breathe loudly. They retreated in horror. Behind those divine generals were two young beggars. They were the ones who sent the message. Now that they were enveloped by the murderous aura, although they tried to pretend to be calm, their pale faces betrayed their hearts. After following the group for a while, they finally couldn't stand the oppressive aura and retreated. However, they were further ahead than the other young beggars, deliberately showing that they were different. Sir, it's them. Not only did they steal, but they also killed people without distinguishing right from wrong. The divine general in front turned around and cupped his fists at the newcomers. He said respectfully. Zichen watched this scene quietly. His expression didn't change much. Kang Mo was an ordinary person. Standing beside Zichen, his face turned pale. Who would have thought that he would encounter such a situation after taking such a big gamble? While the others looked calm, the greed in the monk's eyes grew stronger. How dare you? The divine general, who was emitting a murderous aura, glanced at Zichen and paused on Su Mengyaro and the other girls. His cold eyes flashed as he shouted, How dare you kill people in Luke City? You're courting death. The murderous aura released by so many godly generals had already alerted the people in the city. Many godly generals flew out and stood in the distance to watch. They didn't ask what had happened because there was no need to. In this place, even a small matter could trigger a life and death battle. And the purpose of all battles was also for the sake of benefits. They recognized the person in front of them, and their faces were filled with surprise. The other party's influence in Luke City was enormous, and their combat strength was also extremely strong. Just as the godly general was about to say something, the monk said loudly, "Hey, I see that your armor isn't bad, but why isn't it middle grade?" At this moment, surrounded by a group of godly generals, facing a battle that could break out at any time, he actually said such a thing. Was this the problem they should be thinking about? "How dare you? My armor is the peak of the low grade." The level 9 divine general, who was emitting a murderous aura, said coldly. The monk shook his head regretfully and said, "Isn't that still low grade? I see that you can bring so many people here at once, so your status in Luke City shouldn't be low. Why don't you even have a piece of middle grade armor? You're so low key, how can you live up to your status?" The level 9 divine general was furious. The others were also speechless. They were here to kill. In the face of danger, the other party was actually fussing about the quality of his armor. But after the level 9 divine general shouted, they understood why the other party was fussing about the quality of his armor. Powerful auras surged, and these people also erupted. Kang Mo disappeared from Zi Chen's side. Zi Chen's figure flashed, and he appeared at the side. A long saber appeared in his hand, and he instantly unsheathed it. Saber light flashed, and the light of yin and yang surged. The saber light landed on the nearby level 9 divine generals, and the armor on their bodies began to distort. A powerful force surged, and their bodies flew backward. As they flew backward, the defense of their armor was broken. A single saber strike broke through the defense of several armors. Cries of surprise came from all around, and the divine generals in the distance were shocked. Swish! Beside the divine generals who flew backward, black light flashed. The sound of weapons piercing flesh rang out, and the divine generals who flew backward lost their vitality as they fell. Sounds of tremors came from other directions, and then one after another, the defense of their armor was broken. The devil ape, Lei Ting, Xing Chen, and the others all had the combat strength to break armor. When they attacked with all their strength, the divine generals around them had no power to resist. Johnny appeared when he heard the news. When he saw the battle in front of him, he shook his head, and a look of pity appeared on his face. Along the way, he was very familiar with the combat strength of Zi Chen and the others. These people who took the initiative to find trouble with them were simply asking for death. Bang! A powerful force shook, and the level 9 divine general in the lead flew backward. The monk stood in front of him, and said, "Look, if it was a mid-grade armor, would you be in such a sorry state?" The spectators in the distance were extremely shocked. The divine general who flew backward was Divine General Fuka, and he was very famous in Luke City. His combat strength was also one of the best, and they didn't expect him to be sent flying with a single strike. Although his defense didn't break, his sorry state was seen by everyone. Clearly, his opponent was stronger. "You're courting death." A divine saber appeared in Fuka's hand. His expression became extremely cold, and he slashed at the monk. "You want to play saber with me?" The monk's eyes flashed with disdain, and he waved his demon-subduing pestle like a long saber. The sky was filled with Buddhist light, and with a mighty aura, it collided with the long saber. Turbulent energy collided as the monk and Fuka fought. The little beggars in the distance were too shocked to say a word as they watched the battle in front of them. The two who thought they'd done a good job earlier had retreated to God knows where. Too many of the Warframe divine generals had died. Zi Chen could break several armors with each slash, and Zhong Haotian followed suit. After a large number of divine generals died, they wanted to retreat in fear. Zi Chen glanced at the monk, and said, "End this quickly, we still have to hurry." "Haha, I'm leaving. I won't play with you anymore." The monk laughed loudly, and his aura changed. A palm print fell from the sky. 1 palm. 2 palms. After 3 palms, the defense on Fuka's body exploded. Chapter 2909. When Fuka and the monk fought earlier, they were barely evenly matched. He thought that their combat strength was about the same. Who knew that the monk would break through his defense with 3 palms? He was horrified. Only now did he realize how terrifying his opponent was. The divine generals watching the battle from afar were also shocked. They stared at the monk in disbelief. Murderous intent appeared in the monk's eyes. He charged forward like a bolt of golden lightning. "Stop!" A loud shout came from the city. The voice was still in the city at first, but when the last word was spoken, the person was already outside the city. A sharp whistling sound was heard. A divine sword pierced through the air and arrived in front of the monk. The divine sword clashed with the demon-subduing pestle. A powerful divine light rippled and the divine sword was sent flying. The monk retreated backward. Fuka was still scared. He was secretly glad that he had brushed shoulders with death. Putting away the demon-subduing pestle, the monk looked forward. When he saw who it was, his eyes lit up. The person in front of him was wearing dazzling armor and exuded a powerful aura. It was the mid-grade armor that the monk had been eyeing. In the entire team, only Zi Chen had it. "What's going on?" The person in the mid-grade armor glanced at the corpses on the ground and said coldly, "They stole something. Not only did they not follow us back to check, but they also killed people here." Fuka stepped forward and said, "City Lord, you have to do us justice." To be able to wear a mid-grade armor, the person's status was obviously not low. They did not expect him to be the City Lord of Luke City. Zi Chen was a little surprised, but he did not care too much. He was not afraid of anyone at the same level. He looked at the City Lord quietly. "Is this true?" The City Lord's gaze swept across the area. "Hey, this should be a mid-grade armor, right?" The monk said, staring at the City Lord's armor. The City Lord did not know what the monk meant. He said proudly, "Of course." Seeing that the monk was about to say something, Zi Chen quickly said, "I believe the City Lord can see the truth. These people are just after our resources. That's why they're here to cause trouble." "You're talking nonsense," Fuka said coldly. "This is utter nonsense." Zi Chen smiled faintly and said, "Whether it's nonsense or not, I'm sure the City Lord knows." At this time, more divine generals flew out of the city. They were all wearing battle armor. The murderous aura on their bodies was getting thicker and thicker. Moreover, their auras were condensed together, making them look like well-trained soldiers. "It's the city guards." Cries of alarm came from afar, and all the divine generals retreated. More than 200 city guards had arrived. They stood in the air and stood behind the City Lord in an orderly manner. The baleful aura on their bodies was extremely intense. "City Lord, they are simply slandering us. They stole things and killed people, and now they are accusing us." Beside the mayor, Fuchs said with righteous indignation, "Despicable, too despicable. If we don't kill them, we won't be able to appease the anger of the citizens." Zi Chen looked at the City Lord, waiting for his decision. Tyrant and the others didn't say anything. The City Lord's line of sight moved again. This time, it paused slightly on Su Mengyaro and the other women. He knew Fuchs, so he naturally knew his nature. However, these women were obviously different from the ones he usually encountered. They were stunning, beautiful, and had their own temperament. It was hard not to be moved by them. However, these people's combat strength was obviously not weak. Against those existences, they were practically crushing them. "City Lord, these beauties are all stunning. If we let them go today, it will be difficult to meet them next time. For these beauties, we can definitely give it our all. Moreover, they have a lot of resources on them. Apart from that, there is also the heavenly god needle. Although it is an imitation, it is indeed extraordinary." At this time, he heard Fuchs' voice transmission. "City Lord, with the city guards, we will mainly use joint battle techniques. I believe these people will definitely die. Moreover, you have a mid-grade battle armor. These people won't be able to break through your defense." The City Lord's expression was cold. No one could tell whether he was happy or angry. Fuchs said, "City Lord, don't be deceived by them. These people have evil intentions and are vicious. If you let them go today, they will definitely submit in the future. They might even become worse. Who knows how many people they will kill. City Lord, you must punish them. City Lord, please punish them." The other survivors who followed Fuchs said in unison. Seeing this, Zi Chen smiled. He looked at the City Lord and said, "It seems the City Lord already has an answer." The City Lord said coldly, "You stole first and killed second. Naturally, I can't let you go. If you surrender now, I will deal with this matter impartially. Zichen had already noticed the pause in the city lord's eyes and guessed what he was thinking, so he said, I think that before making a decision, the city lord should carefully consider it to avoid irreversible consequences. Are you threatening me? The city lord's eyes flashed with murderous intent as he released his aura. I'm just stating a fact, Zichen said indifferently. The fact is that you stole, killed, and then are unforgivable. Clearly, the city lord had made up his mind. His eyes flashed coldly as he shouted, capture them. If they dare resist, kill them without mercy. As soon as the city lord finished speaking, Tyrant laughed before the others could say anything. Since you want to fight, why did you talk so much nonsense? You're wasting my time. The divine generals in the distance changed their expressions. Clearly, they didn't expect the city lord to join in. Fuchs people rushed forward, and the city guards behind them also scattered into groups of a dozen. Their auras condensed together like a sharp sword ready to be unsheathed. Tyrant rushed toward the city lord. The city lord's eyes flashed fiercely as he stabbed out with his sword. Bang! With a loud bang, Tyrant's body flew into the air. He spun in the air and flew toward the city guards. The city lord had mid-grade armor, so it would be difficult for him to deal with them. So, he wasn't stupid enough to fight them. When the city guards saw Tyrant coming, 10 of them stepped forward and gathered their strength together. Their divine power converged in the air, forming a dazzling divine sword. A powerful aura erupted from the divine sword. That's the city guards' joint attack. The city lord is leading the city guards. This time, they're probably doomed. Seeing the divine sword, cries of alarm rose from all around. Buzz! The divine sword trembled, and divine light rippled out from its surface. The divine sword pierced straight toward Tyrant. Looking at the sword, Tyrant smiled faintly and a light shield appeared in his hand. The patterns on the light shield lit up and blocked in front of him. The divine sword fell on the light shield, and a powerful force wreaked havoc. Chapter 29:10. The city guard's individual combat strength was not strong and was only equivalent to an ordinary level 9 divine general with armor. The most terrifying thing about them was that they could use a joint attack. The joint attack could gather their essence, chi, and spirit to unleash their strongest combat strength. This was also why the city guards were so fearsome. However, this powerful move seemed to have lost its original effect in front of Monk. Monk stood there with a light shield protecting his body and Buddhist light lingering around him. He allowed the divine sword to wreak havoc but did not move an inch. The light shield dissolved the power of the divine sword, but the light on the surface of the shield became brighter and brighter. In the next moment, the patterns on the light shield lit up one by one and a powerful rebounding force was emitted. The divine sword exploded and the divine generals in front were sent flying. Seeing that Monk had broken the joint attack, the divine generals in the distance were very surprised. Kill! Shouts rang out as more divine generals rushed forward. This time, there were more of them. The more people there were in the joint attack, the stronger the combat strength. At this moment, nearly 50 divine generals were attacking together. The divine sword formed was much more powerful. Buzz! Monk still held the shield to block. Buddhist light lingered around his body and his expression turned slightly solemn. The divine sword contained terrifying energy and kept attacking the light shield. However, it could not penetrate the light shield. All the attacking energy was blocked by the light shield. With an energy boom, the divine sword exploded and the dozens of divine generals were sent flying. Even this is not enough. The divine generals in the distance widened their eyes in disbelief. A quarter of the divine generals were attacking together, but they could not break through one person's defense. There were still others on the other side. How could they fight this battle? Kill! At this moment, a cold voice rang out. The city lord had made his move. His aura rose to the peak. A terrifying pressure surged from the middle-grade armor as he rushed toward Zichen. Zichen looked at the city lord who was charging towards him, and a cold smile appeared on his face. He thrust his sword forward. Divine light lingered around it and ripples shot out. Swish! Zichen's body was pierced by the sword. The scattered sword chi cut his body into countless pieces. The city lord's pupils constricted. He turned around with his sword and slashed horizontally. A bright sword light appeared and brought out a colorful sword arc that illuminated the surroundings. Clang! A long saber pierced through the air, and when the saber and sword collided, there was a powerful shockwave that forced the city lord to retreat. "You're not weak." Retreating over 10 jong, the city lord's eyes flickered with a sharp glint as he gripped his sword and charged forward once more. Zichen smiled and said, "I'm not going to play with you." After saying that, he retreated in a flash, and the surface of his body flickered. "Can you walk?" Divine light surged from the city lord's body as his speed skyrocketed once again as he chased after Zichen. But in the next moment, his expression changed abruptly. He saw the space in front of him distort, and divine light burst out from it. A long spear swept toward him like a rod. The power of this attack surged, distorting the space around it. An ear-piercing sound reverberated throughout the world. Boom! Energy rumbled as divine light rippled in all directions. The city lord retreated into the distance. He raised his head and looked ahead. A look of disbelief appeared on his face as he cried out involuntarily, "Mid-grade battle armor." This exclamation attracted the attention of many people who were looking at the monk. Until now, the city guards had not been able to break through his defense. Their gazes fell on the city lord, and then they followed his gaze. They saw a divine general standing in the sky. His expression was cold, and he looked exactly like the leader of the group from before. They were like twins. But that was not the main point. The main point was that the armor on his body was shining brightly and releasing a suffocating aura. This aura was even slightly stronger than the city lord's. Everyone knew what this meant, so everyone had a look of shock on their faces. They did not expect the enemy to have such a trump card. Foucault also saw this scene and his expression changed drastically. The city guards had not been able to break through the monk's defense, and now the city lord was facing an evenly matched opponent. This battle was back to square one. Just as he was about to panic, a cold voice suddenly rang out, "Leave no one alive." These words came from Zichen. In this world where the strong preyed on the weak, he did his best not to provoke others. But if anyone provoked him, he would not let them go. Foucault sensed the danger and wanted to retreat. Suddenly, a hurricane appeared around him, carrying an indescribable pressure. Foucault felt his speed being affected. The next moment, a beam of yin and yang appeared in front of him. When he saw this light, his expression was one of shock. He knew what this attack meant. He roared and blocked with all his might. With a boom, his weapon flew out of his hand and his body flew backward. The defense he had just put up was shattered once again. One attack had broken through his defense. Foucault was horrified, and his heart was filled with regret. If he had known his opponent was so strong, he would not have come. At this moment, he saw a flash of black light from the corner of his eye. Foucault could no longer see anything after that. After breaking through his defense, Zichen did not look at Foucault again. He flashed toward his second target. Wherever his attack landed, a divine general's defense would be broken. The battle returned to how it was before. The surrounding divine generals fled in terror, but this time, not a single one of them could escape. Lei Ting, the demonic ape, and the others were fighting the city guards. Their joint attack was indeed powerful, but the demonic ape and the others were not weak either. Thus, the two sides were barely even. Soon, all of Foucault's men were killed. Zichen stood in the air, his expression cold as he turned toward his divine avatar. The avatar danced with his spear and fought fiercely against the city lord. Divine light erupted and powerful energy surged, sending the city lord flying again and again. Although he was wearing mid-grade armor, his combat strength was clearly inferior to the avatar's. In the midst of the battle, the city lord was both shocked and furious. He roared, "All city guards, come out. Everyone in Luke City, attack. Kill these people, and this city lord will reward you handsomely." Generous rewards would attract brave men. This saying made sense, but it was not absolute. After hearing the city lord's words, many people were tempted, but no one dared to step forward. The impenetrable divine needle could easily slaughter divine generals without armor. While those with armor didn't fear the needle, others could easily break through their defenses. If this battle were evenly matched, many people would be willing to charge forward. Unfortunately, this was a battle of slaughter. Whoever charged forward would die. Naturally, no one would be foolish enough to do so. After all, Fuko had been killed. Of course, the city guards dared to charge forward. Because they knew how to fight together, they had not lost a single person. More city guards appeared in the city. There were quite a few of them. Seeing this, Zichen's killing intent surged as he charged forward. A combined divine sword flew toward him, carrying with it a vast amount of power. Zichen gripped his blade and unsheathed it. Yin-yang light shot forward. Hiss. The light swept past the divine sword and it dissipated. Chapter 29:11. Buzz. A saber arc shot out from the saber like a waterfall. The saber arc slashed forward, sweeping past the city guards in front of him. The powerful energy vibrated. Their joint attack was broken, and they were sent flying backward. As they flew backward, their defenses were broken one after another. A black light flashed like a black lightning bolt, moving around the city guards who had their defenses broken. When the black light disappeared, the city guards who had their defenses broken had all become corpses. Zichen slashed again. The saber light swept past the other city guards who were in shock. Their defenses were broken as expected. Then, they became corpses. 3 slashes from the saber had destroyed a team of city guards. People in the distance exclaimed. Zichen's fighting power was more terrifying than they had imagined. At this moment, they had to admit that Fuka and the city master had provoked someone they shouldn't have. Fuka had paid the price with his life. They didn't know how the city master would deal with this. Boom. An explosion came from the front. It was Tyrant who had rushed to the front. The joint attack of nearly 100 people had been broken by him. Behind him, a giant Buddha shadow appeared. The Buddha shadow connected the sky and the earth. It was full of pressure and holy light shot out everywhere. A palm fell. A vast aura surged. The Buddha light illuminated the land, reflecting the shocked faces of the level 9 divine generals. As the Buddha's palm fell, a loud boom resounded. These divine generals were sent flying in all directions. As they flew backwards, many of their external defenses were broken. At this moment, breaking their defenses meant death. Zhong Haotian was like the shadow of death, hovering around the city guards who had their defenses broken. Swoosh! Wang Xian slashed forward with her sword. The joint attack had been broken. Endless thunderbolts fell from the sky like chains connecting the sky and the earth. They rumbled and wreaked havoc in front of them. Blood-curdling screams were heard. The divine generals in the joint attack were sent flying backward. The same scene happened in several other places. The people Zichen had brought were the ones with the most potential on the life star. They were also the strongest. Although they weren't ranked divine generals, they definitely had the strength to be on the list. The spectators in the distance looked ahead in shock. In their hearts, the city guards and the city lord were the most terrifying existences in Luke City. Since they had made a move, it was likely that these people were doomed. As for the cause of this matter, it was actually not important at all. Although it was clear who was right and who was wrong, it was meaningless. Here, whoever was stronger was right. If the city lord killed all these people, then he was right, and these dead people would be charged with crimes. The reverse was also true. The fluctuations coming from the surroundings were too terrifying. Those ordinary beggars had already run away. They stood further away to watch the battle. Among them, the 2 little beggars were even more terrified. If something happened to the city lord, then no one would be able to protect the 2 of them. Boom! At this moment, there was a loud explosion in front of them. The city lord was sent flying, and the armor on his body began to distort and become unstable. Whoosh! The divine avatar moved forward, thrusting out with his spear. On the tip of the spear, lines of runes lit up as a powerful aura was released. There was another explosion, and the weapon in the city lord's hand was sent flying. The divine avatar's expression was cold, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. The third attack came. Misunderstanding. This is a misunderstanding. The city lord flew backward. His defense had not been broken, but he was extremely terrified and shouted loudly. The divine avatar did not respond. In his eyes, there was no misunderstanding, only life or death. There was an uproar. Clearly, the city lord had been defeated and was asking for a truce. Unfortunately, the other party did not agree. There was another explosion, and the city lord's mid-grade armor was broken. Misunderstanding. It's really a misunderstanding. I believe you. It's all Fuka's fault. With his defense broken, the city lord was even more terrified and kept shouting. The divine avatar's cold fourth spear arrived. This spear was even more powerful, straight and sharp. It pierced the city lord's throat. The city lord's mouth was open as if he wanted to say something, but he could no longer say a word. His terrified eyes gradually lost their luster. The long spear was pulled out, and the city lord fell to the ground. With the city lord killed, more than half of the city guards on the other side had also died. The remaining ones saw that the situation was hopeless and fled in terror. The battle ended just like that. The ground was littered with corpses and the stench of blood permeated the air. The surroundings were extremely quiet. No one had expected these people to possess such terrifying fighting strength. Even the city lord, who was wearing mid-grade armor, had been killed. In a flash of light, Kang Mo appeared. He didn't know what was happening outside and was extremely anxious. His face was full of worry. However, when he saw everything around him, his eyes widened in disbelief. At this moment, everyone was cleaning up the battlefield. Kang Mo's gaze swept over the battlefield, dazzled by the armor. He looked around and saw that Lord Zi Chen's men were still there, and they seemed to be unharmed. He thought of an unbelievable possibility and was even more shocked. At this moment, he noticed a piece of armor. His expression changed drastically as he cried out, "Mid-grade armor." The divine general in mid-grade armor had already lost all signs of life. Zi Chen asked, "Do you know him?" Kang Mo shook his head, indicating that he did not know him. "He's the city lord." Zi Chen's next words gave Kang Mo a fright. The city lord was a high and mighty figure with a group of city guards as his subordinates. How could this dead man be the strongest city lord? "Do you know where he has a property in the city?" Zi Chen asked again. This time, Kang Mo nodded. He had been here for more than 1,000 years. Even if he was a beggar who was bullied every day, he had heard of some big shots. "Let's go." Zi Chen nodded. At this moment, Tyrant and the others had finished cleaning up the battlefield. Under Kang Mo's lead, they walked into the city again. In the distance, the little beggars looked at Kang Mo, who was leading the way with complicated expressions. There was envy, but no jealousy or hatred. They didn't dare to. Zi Chen didn't just visit the city lord's property. He also went to the city lord's mansion. Then, he went to Fuka's house. After inquiring about Fuka's property, he went there as well. When he came out, Tyrant was beaming with joy. Even Li Ari's pretty face was full of joy. Li Ari and Yi Qian were both wearing battle armor. Their battle armor emitted a powerful pressure. It was a mid-grade armor. Coincidentally, the only property in the city that sold armor belonged to the city lord. When they left the city, the whole city was in discussion. Everyone was shocked by what had happened today. Kang Mo gradually came to know what had happened. While he was equally shocked, he also breathed a sigh of relief. He had made the right bet this time. At the same time, he made a decision. In the wilderness at night, flames rose. Zi Chen and the others sat by the bonfire. There was wine and meat beside them. Kang Mo looked at everyone and walked toward Zi Chen. "Sir, I have something to say," Kang Mo said with a serious expression. Everyone turned to look at Kang Mo. They were confused about what he wanted to say. Kang Mo didn't speak. His body glowed. The space behind him began to distort and a small world opened. Chapter 29:12. Zi Chen had stayed with the craftsman ancestor and had seen him refine tools, so he naturally recognized the facilities. Seeing the small world behind Kang Mo, he was startled and said, "What are you?" The others were also curious, but they did not understand what was going on. "Sir, This is my innate ability. Kang Mo said, I've awakened it long ago, more than 1,000 years ago. Everyone was very surprised to hear this. After awakening, the natives could refine battle armor and had a very high status in the city. Since Kang Mo had awakened long ago, why was he still a beggar? Or had he been a beggar for more than 1,000 years? Among the group, Zi Chen was the most puzzled. Kang Mo should have been bullied every day in these years, so why was he still hiding his identity? This is my father's idea. He said he would come to pick me up, and before he comes, I'm not allowed to be exposed. Speaking of his father, Kang Mo lowered his head, his mood becoming low. My father and I agreed to meet in 1,000 years, but now it's been 1,300 years. At that time, my father said that if he didn't come, I should find a way to leave Luke City. But the premise was that I had to find someone I trusted and reliable, or I had to stay here. After so long, Kang Mo's father had not come, so something must have happened. Zi Chen said, why did you choose us? Because your auras are different, and the battle armor here is useless to you, but I happen to know how to customize battle armor. Kang Mo said, I want to join you first, but I won't reveal my identity for the time being. Kang Mo wanted to join the team because of the kind side of Su Mengyaro and the others, and because of the different auras of Zi Chen and the others. If Su Mengyaro and the others were not kind and fierce, even if Zi Chen and the others were suitable, he would not join. But that was only the first step. He still had to see if the people in this team were reliable. He was very touched when Zi Chen gave him 6 heavenly beast crystals. Then, Zi Chen's words made him see Zi Chen's character. In the next few days, the others did not show any repulsion toward him, and even treated him very well. They clearly knew that he had not yet awakened, and it was unlikely that he would awaken in the future, but they still treated him extremely well. Clearly, this was a team that could be trusted. However, he still did not intend to reveal his identity. He wanted to follow the group and see how it went. He never thought that he would run into trouble as soon as he left the city. At that time, Kang Mo was very nervous and worried. For the first time in more than 1,000 years, he was willing to stay in a team. It was also the first time he was willing to reveal his identity. He prayed that nothing would happen to this team. Who would have thought that the final result would give him a huge shock? Even the strongest city lord had been killed. He already had a good impression of this team and wanted to join them. Now that they were so strong, Kang Mo didn't plan to hide his identity. Hearing Kang Mo's explanation, everyone looked at Zi Chen with strange expressions. At that time, they were not optimistic about Kang Mo. Only Zi Chen expressed that he wanted to keep him. Could it be that he had discovered something long ago? Of course, Zi Chen did not know that the other person had already awakened. He just saw that he was different from the other beggars and liked his character. He did not have any other thoughts. Who would have thought that he would actually pick up a treasure? Can you customize battle armor? Asked Zi Chen. Kang Mo nodded and said, it's a skill passed down in my family. I can customize battle armor according to different attributes. Compared to my custom-made battle armor, the battle armor sold in this world is the lowest grade. Kang Mo glanced at Yi Qian and Li Ari and said, like the middle-grade battle armor on the two sisters, it's only a little higher than the lowest grade. When everyone heard this, they were all overjoyed. How was this picking up a treasure? This was clearly picking up a great treasure. Can you refine it now? Or do you need some time to grow? Refining is our innate magical ability. We can refine it as long as we awaken it. As for custom-made battle armor, although it's more difficult, I can still refine it. It's just that the grade won't be too high. Of course, if the refining is successful, the grade will be higher than the low-grade battle armor worn by divine generals. As the proficiency level increases, the grade will be higher and higher. Zi Chen nodded and said, well, then you can try to refine it first. The materials are here. You can see what suits you, and then decide who to refine it for. Kang Mo entered Zi Chen's world. There were many resources there, all of which were under Kang Mo's control. Kang Mo disappeared. Everyone looked at Zi Chen curiously. Seems like my luck is not bad. Zi Chen smiled. The others also had smiles on their faces. Although the devil ape and the others had battle armor, it was the battle armor of the divine realm. It was not suitable for them. But now, it was good. Soon, Kang Mo appeared again and said, "Those resources can be used to refine several types of battle armor. If it's custom-made at the beginning, refining a set will be very slow. Because I've never made battle armor before, I need to be familiar with it. This will take some time." Zichen said, "How can you speed it up?" Kang Mo said, "First, I'll refine ordinary battle armor suitable for you, just like the low-grade battle armor worn by divine generals. But it's only suitable for you, not custom-made." Kang Mo obviously meant that they needed to be familiar with it first. Practice makes perfect. But this way, the battle armor at the early stage will definitely not be used at the later stage. It will cause unnecessary waste. Kang Mo said, "Go ahead and refine it. It won't be wasted. Even if we don't use it, we can take it back." Zichen said, "Don't worry and go ahead. You can distribute the resources there. There are also heavenly beast crystals. You can use as much as you want." "Thank you, my lord." Kang Mo's face was filled with joy. After saluting Zichen with cupped fists, he entered Zichen's world again. Next, he would wholeheartedly refine battle armor. As a native, Kang Mo's innate ability was to refine battle armor. Zichen and the others continued to move towards Tenny City. 2 months later, they arrived at Tenny City. It was more lively than Luke City. Moreover, general armor was very common. It was difficult to find someone who was not wearing one. Zichen's arrival without his battle armor immediately attracted a lot of attention. But no one came to find trouble. After staying in Tenny City for a few days, they saw a place that sold mid-grade battle armor. But Yi Qian and Li Ari already had mid-grade battle armor, so they naturally did not need it. After staying for a few days, they continued to go deeper. Their goal was to enter the deepest part and find a way to break through to the king stage. They continued to move forward and went deeper into 2 more cities. Walking on the wasteland, it started to rain one day. The rain was very heavy. Everyone's body emitted light, blocking the rain as they walked in the heavy rain. The rain continued for a few days without any signs of stopping. This kind of weather was not common, so no one felt anything unusual. The only strange thing was that they did not encounter any other heavenly beasts in the past few days. Monk, who was walking in front, suddenly stopped. He looked up at the sky in the distance and was stunned. Chapter 29:13. Everyone was looking at a giant python in the sky. It was circling in the sky like a real dragon, and light was flowing around its body. It had 5 heads, and they all looked the same. However, the light they emitted was different, and the aura was also different. It circled in the sky, and the space around it was distorted, but there was no fluctuation. "What is that? A 5-headed python?" Monk looked up at the circling python, and his eyes were filled with surprise. Everyone came here together. Monk didn't know, and Zichen and the others naturally didn't know. "Kang Mo, do you have time now?" Kang Mo, who was showing his innate ability to forge armor, suddenly heard Zichen's voice from the sky. "Sir, you're looking for me?" Kang Mo looked up. "I'm here to see something. See if you recognize it." Kang Mo stood up, and the vision behind him disappeared. A passage appeared in front of him, and he walked into the passage. In a situation where no one knew what was in front of them, Zichen could only think of Kang Mo. Kang Mo walked out of the world, and the rain around him was stopped by an invisible force just as it fell on his body. He looked up at the sky and saw the abnormality in the sky. He rubbed his eyes, as if he couldn't believe it. Everyone looked at Kang Mo. His expression indicated that he recognized that thing. No one urged him, and they waited for Kang Mo to observe it carefully. "It's really a 5-headed python," Kang Mo exclaimed. "I've only seen this thing in my inherited memories, and I've never seen it in real life. It's said that they live at the edge of this world, and it's very difficult to meet them. Every time we meet them, it's either a disaster or an opportunity." "What do you mean?" Everyone didn't quite understand. These 5-headed pythons are very powerful, and people who meet them often lose their lives, so it's a disaster. However, the material on its body is one of the main materials for tailor-made armor. The inner core is a divine item that can strengthen the physical body, and it's called a great opportunity. Kang Mo said excitedly. Heavenly pythons are divided into 5 levels, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 heads. They don't have heavenly beast crystals in their bodies, but they have condensed heavenly python inner cores. Once you refine the heavenly python inner cores, your physical body can be greatly improved, and it's said that it can be upgraded to the corresponding level. There are also different levels of physical bodies? The monk asked. Kang Mo nodded and said, yes, after refining those heavenly beast crystal stones, the strength of one's body will increase, but at most it can only reach the 4th stage. But in this area, most of them are at the 1st stage or have no grade. The 2nd stage is already considered a powerhouse. I guess the Dead City Lord was at the 2nd stage. 3rd or 4th grade heavenly bodies were extremely rare, and after reaching the 4th grade heavenly body, in order to raise the strength of one's physical body, one would have to find a heavenly beast like the heavenly python that had an inner core. Furthermore, these heavenly beasts with inner cores were at least equivalent to a 5th grade heavenly body. The one in front of us is of the 5th rank. It can sweep away all divine generals below the 5th rank. Therefore, meeting it is both a disaster and an opportunity. Hearing Kang Mo's words, everyone's expression changed. They looked up at the sky again, their eyes burning with eagerness. To them, this was clearly an opportunity that they could not miss. Then what grade is our corporeal body? Tyrant asked again. Kang Mo shook his head and said, it is very difficult to determine the grade of the physical body. In the beginning, there is no accurate standard. Only when one reaches the 5th grade can there be a standard. What's the standard of level 5? They were all very curious. It can easily shatter a low-grade armor. It can easily break the defense of a mid-grade armor. Hearing Kang Mo's words, everyone's expression changed. What kind of strength would it take to shatter an armor with one's physical body? They looked at Zi Chen. Even he, the first on the ranking of generals, could not do it, right? It will be very difficult for the divine generals who come here to break through again, so they try to find a way to break through by relying on their physical body. The higher the grade of the physical body, the stronger the combat power. Everyone could understand this point. They were all 9th level divine generals. Except for those special existences, there was not much difference in their combat power. Once there was a gap in the strength of the physical body, there would be an obvious difference in the combat power of both sides. If the being in the sky had a 5th stage corporeal body, wouldn't it mean that it could easily break a mid-grade armor? Let me try. Just as everyone was frowning, Tyrant flew forward with a light shield in his hand. Raindrops fell on Tyrant's body, emitting white smoke like a dense fog. Tyrant's Buddhist light surrounded him, illuminating the surroundings. The falling raindrops evaporated before they could get close to him. The 5-headed sky python noticed Tyrant. One of its mouths opened and let out a hiss. The space in front of them was distorted. Huge rocks appeared in the sky one after another. They were like meteorites as they whizzed toward Tyrant. Bang! Bang! A tremor was heard as energy vibrated. Tyrant moved forward in a straight line among the meteorites. All the meteorites that fell on him were shattered by the light shield. He forced a path out of the meteorites and moved forward in a straight line. Among the group, Tyrant's defense was the strongest. It was not a bad idea to let him test the opponent's strength. After Tyrant rushed out of the group of meteorites, the sky python opened its mouth again. This time, a golden light shone. Countless sharp blades appeared in the sky as if a golden rain of swords was falling from the sky. The falling rain of swords tore the real raindrops apart. More steam rose like a large cloud. Its 5 heads represent the 5 elements of heaven and earth. Kang Mo looked at the golden rain of swords falling from the sky and said, these were all things in his inherited memory. As a native of this world, when he awakened his innate ability, he would also awaken many memories. Tens of thousands of swords fell on Tyrant's body. The swords were shattered one after another. Feeling the power of the swords, Zi Chen and the rest were silently calculating in their hearts. Based on the current situation, such an attack was not strong and could not break through their defense. Tyrant safely passed through the rain of swords. Then, he encountered a sea of fire. In the sea of fire, a powerful flame creature appeared and launched a ferocious attack at Tyrant. The monk didn't dodge or evade as he charged forward. All the attacks from the fiery creatures would be crushed by his domineering might. At the same time, those flame creatures were shattered in front of Tyrant. These attacks could not do anything to Tyrant. Up until now, the five sky python had not shown any combat strength that Zichen and the rest were afraid of. The rain became even more ferocious. In the low-lying areas, puddles had already turned into ponds. Tyrant finally arrived in front of the five sky python. He raised his light shield and a glaring light burst out from his body as he collided with the five sky python. The five sky python waved its tail and hit Tyrant. There was a dull tremor between heaven and earth. The heavy rain stopped in an instant and a powerful wave spread out in all directions. It was not that the rain had stopped, but it was separated by the energy wave. In the rumble, Tyrant's body flew out. The light shield on the surface of his body lit up with rays of light, neutralizing the powerful force. Chapter 29:14. It couldn't break the defense, which was what everybody had expected. The light shield was one of the 9 extreme weapons, the most powerful weapons in the Lifestar. Although the defense wasn't broken, the monk was hurt through the shield, which showed how powerful the opponent was. With the long saber in his hand, Zichen stormed forward. Yi Qian and Li Ari followed him. Zhong Haotian, the demon ape, Lei Ting, and Xing Chen also stormed forward. Buzz. A ripple appeared in the void. The rain curtain between heaven and earth turned into arrows, filling the entire area. As the power surged, countless arrows circled in the sky like dragons, shooting toward the intruder. Zichen's body was pierced through in just a blink of an eye, torn into pieces by the arrows. It was just a shadow. His real body had reached the five-headed sky python. The yin and yang light sparkled on his body as he tried his best to draw the saber out of its scabbard. Heaven and earth suddenly brightened up like the sun, shining brightly on the arrows. The saber light carried a powerful aura, slashing toward the five-headed sky python. Clanging sounds arose. Sparks flew everywhere as the saber light shattered. A flow of powerful recoil went through the saber and fell on Zichen's body. He flew backward in the air. Swoosh! The sky python's tail swept across Zichen's body, shattering another shadow. Zichen had already retreated far away. Die! In the sky, the demon ape transformed. Endless demon light surged on its massive body. The black stick glowed in a blink of an eye. It grew bigger and smashed down with the power of wind and thunder. Boom! Heaven and earth rumbled. Demon chi rolled. The black stick hit one of the five-headed sky python's heads. The part of its head that had been hit shook, and it seemed to be a little dizzy. Its cold eyes rolled back into its head. In the next moment, the demon ape's body flew backward. The low-grade armor on his body shattered inch by inch before exploding and falling to the ground. One strike had broken the armor. Clang! 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 The weapon and the scales continued to collide, creating countless sparks. No one could break the defense of the five-headed sky python's scales. The opponent's attack was even more powerful. Lei Ting's and Xing Chen's armors were broken. They coughed out blood while flying backward. The five-headed sky python's supernatural attack wasn't scary. What was scary was its body. It was fast and powerful, which made it hard for people to dodge. Wang. Seeing this, Zichen's eyes flashed. The 8 saber ancestor steelies came out one after another, forming a saber domain that shrouded the area. You guys stay outside. Zichen's figure flashed and entered the saber domain. The divine avatar appeared. The mid-grade battle armor on his body sparkled, and there was no longer a ranking behind him. Since he had come to this world, the general armor ranking had naturally disappeared. The weapon in his hand was no longer his battle spear, but the stone knife that Zichen had brought out from the abyss. Within the domain, the five-headed heavenly pythons seemed to feel threatened. Their cold eyes were filled with unease. It let out a shriek and opened all 5 of its mouths. The power of the 5 elements surged out. Golden swords, meteors, arrows, flames, and wood elemental attacks appeared and rushed toward Zichen and his doppelganger. The attacks from the divine abilities filled the entire domain. They looked very terrifying, but they were nothing to Zichen. He stood in the air with an indifferent expression. Those terrifying attacks dissipated when they were several feet away from him. They couldn't get close to him. The power of yin and yang flowed into the saber. The saber began to tremble, as if it couldn't wait to be unsheathed. Zichen's eyes flashed with murderous intent. He pulled out the saber. The moment he pulled out the saber, the entire domain shook. The 8 saber ancestors' steles that stood between heaven and earth released a strong light. 8 saber intents appeared from the saber ancestors' steles and fell on the unsheathed saber. The saber, whose aura was already terrifying, became even more powerful at this moment. The saber slashed down. There was a touch of horror in the 5-headed heavenly python's eyes. Its body twisted, and the power of the 5 elements lingered on the surface of its body. It wanted to escape. However, it was in the saber domain. Its speed was affected, and the saber light fell faster than the outside world. During this time, there was an ear-piercing sound, like metal rubbing against each other. Puff. Blood splattered and a head rolled down. Although it was a little difficult, it was still decapitated. The 5-headed heavenly python became 4. Outside the domain, everyone's faces were filled with joy when they saw this scene. Zichen's physical body was obviously not as good as the other parties, but he had the advantage of the yin-yang energy. Coupled with the saber domain, he broke the other party's defense. When Kang Mo saw this, he opened his mouth wide in shock. In his inherited memory, this kind of heavenly python could only be suppressed by people of the same level. He did not expect Zichen to cut off one of its heads. At this moment, the divine clone moved. He did not use any divine skills. Instead, he held the stone saber and rushed forward. Colorful light lingered on the stone saber, and a powerful aura was released. He used the fleetfoot stride and arrived in front of the other head of the heavenly python. He slashed down. The scales met the stone saber and shattered directly. At the same time, the stone saber continued downward and cut the heavenly python's body. As blood splattered, the heavenly python lost another head. After losing 2 heads, the heavenly python's eyes were full of violence. With a bang, the divine clone flew backward. The flashing armor defense on the surface of his body was directly broken. The rain of swords became denser. They whistled and fell on Zichen and the divine clone, making clanging sounds. Slash. Zichen's second saber fell. It was still an all-out attack. Wherever the saber light passed, the heavenly python's speed was suppressed. As expected, another head was thrown. The divine clone, who was retreating, steadied himself. The stone saber had always given him a sharp feeling. This time, it did not disappoint him. Swish. His body disappeared, leaving behind a series of afterimages. He arrived at the heavenly python's head. The stone saber lit up with colorful light. The saber slashed down again, overflowing with cold light. Puff. The 4th head was cut off. The divine clone coughed up blood and flew backward. A white mark appeared on his armor. It was slightly dented. The golden rain of swords in the sky disappeared, and so did the meteorites. The heavy rain that had lasted for more than 10 days outside the domain also stopped. Only one of the 5 heads was left. Flames swept across the sky, forming many fire dragons. Zichen rushed forward. His body crashed into the fire dragon, and the fire dragon dissipated. Crack. This time, the heavenly python was faster. Its tail whipped his body, and the sound of bones breaking could be heard. Zichen's physical body was very strong. It was once known as the perfect physical body. Unexpectedly, after coming here, he was injured in one strike. The divine clone rushed forward. However, it was very strenuous to kill the last head. Crack, crack. Zichen and the divine clone rushed forward. However, they were sent flying again and again. Even when Zichen used the domain saberlight, the other party could still dodge it. It seemed that after turning into one head, the other party was even faster. Zichen wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His expression turned even colder. A whirlpool appeared in the sky above the domain. Laws fell from the whirlpool. These laws came from his world. They were all sealing and could affect the speed. The laws fell and coiled around the heavenly python's body, affecting its speed. Zichen used his full power again. 8 saber intense coiled around the saber. Puff. With this saber, the last head of the 5-headed heavenly python was chopped off. Its body twisted in midair and fell to the ground. Swish. Zichen waved his sleeve. The divine clone and the 5-headed heavenly python disappeared in the domain. Chapter 29:15. Hearing Zichen's words, the others were startled. They looked around but did not find anyone around. In Zichen's line of sight, 2 lights appeared. They were 2 divine generals in armor. Their armors had a strong oppressive aura. They were both middle-grade armors. Sensing that there were people in the dark, Zichen asked everyone to retreat. He joined forces with his avatar to kill the sky python and even used his trump card. In this way, everyone could ensure their own combat strength to deal with the possible dangers. Tyrant and the rest flew over and surrounded Zichen to protect him. In the previous battle, Zichen and his avatar were seriously injured. Don't misunderstand. We mean no harm. Feeling the group's unfriendly eyes, a middle-aged man quickly waved his hand and explained, although we came for the 5-headed sky python, we also know the principle of first come, first served. The 5-headed sky python has been killed by you, so we won't fight for it. My name is Martin, and this is my friend, Lenk. The group did not let down their guard because of Martin's sincere attitude. The 2 of them dared to come here to kill the 5-headed sky python. Obviously, they were not weak. Maybe they had the 5th stage physique that Kang Mo mentioned. Martin looked at Zichen and said with admiration, "Little brother, you're really powerful. You can kill the 5-headed sky python alone. Although it was injured, it's definitely not something that ordinary people can kill." You're saying that the 5-headed heavenly python was injured? Zichen looked at Martin with a stunned expression. The others' expressions also changed. In the previous battle, if it were not for Zichen, it would be very difficult for them to kill the 5-headed sky python, or it would be impossible at all. But they did not expect that such a terrible guy could break the low-grade armor and middle-grade armor with one blow. Unexpectedly, it was still injured. What if it was not injured? Martin nodded and said, "This kind of sky python usually stays in the depths. Only when it's injured will it come out. But little brother is still amazing because even if it's injured, its 5th stage physique is still powerful enough." Zichen said, "We were going to the depths and it happened by accident. We didn't think too much about it." Martin said, "You're in luck. We searched for a long time before we found this place. Little brother, I see that your combat strength is not weak. Why don't you join us?" "Join you?" Zichen looked at him in confusion. "We are the gods' mercenaries who specialize in hunting level 5 heavenly beasts. If you want to grow quickly, the only way is to constantly hunt down level 5 heavenly beasts and refine heavenly beast pills. As for killing level 5 heavenly beasts, we are professionals," Martin said with a smile. Zichen was very surprised. He didn't know much about this place and didn't know what the so-called mercenaries of God were. He said, "I'm sorry, we're new here, so we don't know much about this place." When Martin and Lunky heard this, the smiles on their faces froze. They looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Martin asked, "Little brother, you, just call me Zichen. Little brother Zichen, did you just come to this world?" Martin looked extremely surprised. Zichen said, "Not really. It's been almost a year." When the 2 heard this, they were even more shocked. Martin said, "Then little brother Zichen, have you refined any heavenly beast crystals?" Zichen nodded and said, "Yes, I have." "Then have you felt any bottlenecks?" Martin asked again, his eyes fixed on Zichen. Zichen shook his head and said, "No, I've been improving." Martin said in shock, "Little brother, you're really amazing. It looks like we've underestimated you." "What do you mean?" "We thought that little brother had already reached the level 4 heavenly body, so you could kill level 5 heavenly pythons with the help of weapons. Now it looks like that's not the case. When little brother first came to this world, I'm afraid your body was only at the level 1 or level 2. To be able to kill a level 5 heavenly python at such a level is really shocking." Martin said, "Little brother, with your talent, it would be best for you to join our gods' mercenaries. We specialize in hunting level 5 heavenly beasts, and the resources we obtain can be exchanged for other materials and weapons. You've just come here, so you might not know. In this region, there are not many weapon refiners who can decompose level 5 and above heavenly beast materials. After you join us, not only will you be able to exchange for things you want, once we gather enough resources, we can even tailor a set of battle armor to suit your fighting style. Kang Mo stood at the side and did not speak, but his expression showed that he was not convinced. Zi Chen smiled and said, I appreciate Big Brother Martin's good intentions, but we've just come here, and are not familiar with this world. Martin said embarrassedly, I was too rash. This is for you. If you want to join us, just send a message. Martin took out a round ball engraved with runes and passed it to Zi Chen. Looking at the round ball, Kang Mo exclaimed, This is a wind message communication pearl. Martin turned back to look at Kang Mo and smiled, Little brother, you have good eyesight. Martin and Lunky said goodbye and left. Before they left, they told Zi Chen the location of the nearest city. After they left, Zi Chen looked at Kang Mo and asked, You know about the God's mercenaries? Kang Mo shook his head, indicating that he had never heard of it. Although Kang Mo had lived in this world for thousands of years, his understanding of this world was extremely limited. His knowledge of the grade of his physical body was also limited to his inherited memories. Before he awakened, he knew nothing about anything. After he awakened, he was a beggar and could not come into contact with the outside world. Through this conversation with Martin, Zi Chen knew that refining heavenly beast crystal stones would bring great benefits to the body, and could even help one reach a powerful grade. Although during this period of time, everyone had also been refining, but they still mainly hurried on with their journey. Because no one thought that continuously refining heavenly beast crystal stones would bring about great changes to the body. At the same time, after the previous few battles, they were also full of confidence in their own combat strength. They thought that this world was the same as the divine world, where level 9 divine generals were nothing. This time, after encountering the 5-headed heavenly python, their confidence was shattered. It turned out that the divine world's ranking was not much here. It seemed that there was a reason why the ranking General A did not show the ranking after coming here. At the same time, this battle also allowed Zi Chen to have a sufficient understanding of himself. Reaching level 9 did not mean that one was invincible, and being the first on the ranking general did not mean that one could defeat all of the same level. Reaching level 9 was just crossing the threshold, there was still a lot of space behind the door. In this world, many divine generals stopped here and did not go deeper. It was not that they were fools, nor that they had given up, but that they knew that their strength was limited. Fortunately, he did not find out too late, and was not so proud that he only realized it after suffering a great loss. Next, the group set off for the nearest city. Along the way, they could easily kill the battle beasts they encountered. But this time, no one was overly proud and disdainful. They had a new understanding of this world. This time, everyone's goal was simple. Enter the city. Rest. Refine. Grow.